Very good.
It's actually my ringtone. Excuse me.
Hello. It's a fanfare. Yes, we're here. We're broadcasting. Come on, let's bring in some more
Live.
brass.
Yay!
Oh, it's better. Well, never mind. Forget that. Hello, everyone.
Had enough
We're
of the
here.
fanfare.
Hey, it's. I'll save that for this show.
Oh, by the way, that's your audio volume there.
Yes, I figured that out already. When I put my headphones in, it was blasting my eardrums.
Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Except for me.
Yeah, clearly someone with.
Well, the different
not as good of-
headphones have different
Mhm.
resistances, and that's the reason why, not because we're losing our hearing. And why did Dana disappear?
Uh-huh.
I didn't do that.
I have no idea.
I did.
Oh, you did it yourself. You wanted to be on the bottom?
Oh,
Yeah, accidentally, not on purpose. Sure. Although you wish I
Clever
was
trick.
here, but I'm not going away that easy.
What? Oh, you tried to hit the mute button and you removed yourself from the stream, right?
Well, no, I clicked
You
on
left
my
the
picture to make-
studio.
I was trying to make the picture here a little bigger.
Ah.
I was just trying to touch
That's
it,
what
make
she
it bigger.
said.
Okay.
And
Well,
it didn't work out that way.
very good. Very good. So, well, I guess we can. Oh, they're muted, so we can't hear what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
What little smart
Yeah.
aleck thing are you saying about us right now?
we were talking about how to use the mouse to mute ourselves
Yeah.
and to share it.
Never
We're
mind
going
then.
to share
Sorry.
the mouse.
You know, just technical, behind the scenes things
Never mind.
that no one really needs to.
Yeah. Sorry, I pointed it out.
How is our audio, by the way? Are we loud enough for you?
I think to me, I sound like I'm louder than everybody else. Again.
You sound perfectly normal.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone sounds equal to me.
Okay. How about
Everybody sounds good to me.
chat room people? What do you think? And I guess I won't ask any questions about how everything is going with you, Steph, because that's good show stuff.
I'll fill you in.
Okay. All right.
Just like that.
Wow, this is a
apparently.
really long lag on the chat room. Or maybe they're just not going to bother telling
They
you.
don't. They
No,
don't
they
care.
don't care.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't blame them.
That's fair. Okay. Let's see. Let me make sure we have. Oh, we need to start recorders and stuff.
Yeah, good point.
And look what I have.
Oh, yeah. You might need
no writing
to
on
make
it.
some quick
Yep.
alterations on that one.
What show number is this?
391.
391.
Oh.
Top drawer, a
Yeah.
red pen.
Mm.
Well, I don't have anything on mine. You don't have to put anything on there. Nobody cares.
Apparently,
Really?
Nick cares.
I'm nothing if not caring.
Okay.
All right, we are
Show
recording. Did you say something, Steph?
Say something.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
And Al says that I'm slightly louder than Steph. Well, that's true.
Normal.
Yeah, real
That's true normally, I think. Yeah.
I'm a loudmouth. Is that what you're saying, Captain? Al?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Danny, you didn't have to jump in so quickly on
Well,
that.
you know, I usually don't jump in that quickly. Though.
I know. Unless you really feel
Jump right
strongly
in.
about something.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, audio and video good for all of you.
Friday the 13th
It
today,
is.
isn't it?
It is.
It is
Yeah. And a full moon.
Uh-oh.
even better.
Yeah.
Well, it's nearly out here, the full moon.
Oh, I hear you.
Almost. Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready? Let's do our clapboards or a clap sound. Ready, ready. APG 391 in 3, 2, 1.
Sitting right next to each other, couldn't get it right.
Still hearing them.
Yeah, I know. Just, I was going to say something about Nick being a little slow, but I'll leave that to be.
Yeah, so
something.
have you confirmed that that's what he's doing
It's-
actually? He's just purposely not?
Yes, that's exactly what's happening
That's what we suspected.
all along.
Ah, damn, I need more beer.
Do you?
No.
Okay.
I can last until probably the end of the intro.
Okay, good.
Yeah, mine's going to run out quickly here too.
Yeah, I still have a
Okay.
mostly full Lagunitas.
I have a drinking problem. Just
The
drinking
Lagunitas is The Maximus is. I've had that. I had that for the first time just a few days ago, and I really like it. This is not the Maximus because I drank all of it. This is just the regular. Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 391.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 13th of September, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Get you right and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a mechanic charged with sabotage in Miami. Skydivers are almost run over by a flight of F-15s. More news, your feedback, and this week's plane tale, still waiting for help, still praying. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in their upright lock positions, electronic devices powered on. Flight 391 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we talk about aviation news and answer your fantastic feedback. Joining me from across the pond in a studio in the quaint English countryside, a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. It is great to see you this evening. And yes, I am not at home. Came across the pond for a week or so to take part in a few events, which we'll catch up with shortly, I think. But looking forward to a great show tonight.
Excellent. We're looking forward to it as well. And sitting right next to Steph, also in a studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, former captain. I actually corrected it. Former captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Well, hi there, Jeff. Yeah, I did phone immigration to try and let them know what was about to happen, but sadly, we don't have enough people to answer the phone nowadays. So there you go. She's here. What a pleasure it is to have one of my co-hosts right beside me. Brilliant.
Awesome. And also joining us from this side of the pond, in his studio near the Concord Covered Bridge, historic Concord Covered Bridge in Smyrna, Georgia, barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and captain for a major U.S. legacy airline based in Atlanta, Captain Dana.
Hey guys, great to be back, and I'm so excited for another fantastic APG episode.
We weren't expecting you to be here this week, Dana. You said you were going to be gone all week or something.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Now I'm here.
All right. Well, we're so happy about
I couldn't miss it. I was just getting lonely.
Cut your trip short just so that you could be back and be on the show.
Just so I could be on the show.
He's got his priorities in order.
That's dedication. The rest of you hosts, make note of that.
I had nothing better to do.
Well, I'm going to have to cut that out.
I'm really only kidding.
There's the truth.
Truth comes out.
Yes.
Okay, so what's going on, Steph? Why are you in Nick Anderson's house?
He invited me to stay, so that was very kind of him. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, well, I guess I should maybe back up a little bit more then. Why are you in the United Kingdom?
Good question. Yes.
Okay.
So here just on vacation. We actually, Justice and I had planned to go to the Goodwood Revival this weekend, which is a vintage motorsports event. And not only vintage motorsports, but everyone kind of gets dressed up and plays the part as well, which is kind of fun. So before I came over, made a stop to my local vintage store, picked up a couple of dresses and accoutrement, and been having kind of some fun with that this week. So first day was today, and it runs through Sunday. It's about 35 minutes or so drive from Nick's place. So it was very kind of Nick to offered to let us stay here as a little bit of a home base.
Yeah,
So.
blackmail does come in handy, doesn't it?
Yeah, we did turn the lights out and duck down behind the the bottom of the windows, but she had me sussed. There's no. She's
Yeah,
a very smart
I've been
cookie.
here a time or two before, and I know all.
Yeah.
You didn't have the sign in the front where it said "Go away, we're not home."
I know where the spare key is
Yeah, that was the
stashed away in
problem.
the garden. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of all of us, Steph, you have been a guest at the Anderson.
At Shea Anderson. Yeah.
Yeah, many more times than anybody else.
Yeah,
You
I
hold
think
the
so.
record.
Yeah, she knows her way around the beer fridge now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, we all know
he's-
that.
But
First thing we were
specifically
checking
Nick's beer. Yeah. The beer's over there. But it's been a great week. Did a whole bunch of stuff. I had other commitments and things to do in Pennsylvania the last weekend, actually. And so on our way to the UK, I stopped over in New York City, spent a night at the JFK airport. Not in the airport, but as you'll recall, they have this new swanky hotel, which is all aircraft airport themed, the TWA hotel. And that was really, really cool. We'll definitely have to figure out how to plan a meetup there at some point. It was kind of a last minute thing, so I did have a couple of our friends of the program join me for drinks, Dave Abbey and Tanya Wyman, and that was very nice of them to come out and spend a little bit of time. It wasn't a big formal meetup, but we'll have to do that at some point because.
Did they join you poolside on the top of the hotel?
So the pool is an interesting thing. It's if you're not a hotel guest, there's quite a steep charge to use the pool.
What if you're a
because the
guest
pool-
of a guest?
So I believe you can actually bring one guest, but then there's a charge for your second guest.
Oh, okay.
So
Then that's when you said to Dave, sorry, Dave, Tanya and I are going to be out.
Tanya and I are going to go to the. Actually, I did not realize this until the next day because otherwise it would have probably been worth the effort to try and get up there. But no, we had a good time in the. There's a couple different places where you can enjoy a beverage. The Sunken Lounge is fun and retro-y, and they've got the old flight boards all set up to change and do different things. And then you can go out on the Constellation, the Connie, and it's all set up as a bar on the inside. So we had a couple drinks out there, actually just a champagne toast, I think. And a lot of other interesting things, just you can walk around. They've got little bits and pieces set up where you can see some of the history of TWA, the old uniforms, flight attendant stuff. And
did you spot the twat fabric?
Not the fabric. So they printed it, but never actually turned it into any of the uniforms. But there is actually a blurb about it in the little flight museum area.
Neat.
Yeah, it's definitely there. So I highly recommend it if you're spending the night. If you need to spend the night near the airport at JFK, it's a great location if you're an AvGeek. If you can get a room that overlooks the ramp and the runway, that's awesome. If you're there, you can go up to the pool and the bar up there, and it overlooks most of Terminal 5 and 3, 4.
Plenty of Acme Red airplanes out there.
Yeah, it was like a A340-600 convention while I was there.
Hey,
There were like 3 of them parked
we
out.
love them.
I
May have
didn't even know
been
you guys.
4.
I didn't even know there were. What's
It's
that?
like a really super long international terminal.
4. Yeah.
4. Yeah.
4. Okay. Yeah. I was trying to think because I know there's one number that's kind of.
Then I think
skipped
5
me.
is no longer there.
No, 5 is JetBlue.
Well, they
5 is
renumbered
JetBlue.
them.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure on the numbering. I should know because I flew into the one terminal on Acme actually.
Our beautiful Pan Am terminal was torn down a couple of years ago.
Well, that's a bummer.
Sad.
I don't know. All I know is that I came in on an Acme regional flight actually, and we parked all the way at the very end of the terminal. My bags arrived at the baggage claim well before I actually got there, and I was the second person off the plane. I didn't stop. It was like
the day before.
yeah. They really did. It was.
Well, they
it
knew
was pretty
that
crazy.
you just don't get enough exercise.
Yeah, they wanted me to really run for those bags. So.
Speaking of that, how was the run in Erie?
So that was just really a training run for me. It was actually a full-on marathon that was happening, and I did not run the full marathon because I've been dealing with some minor injuries. So discussing with the coach that I work with, decided just to do 1 lap of the 2-lap course and run it at goal pace, and more or less was able to do that through about 10 miles of the 13 miles. But pretty happy with that for what I've been dealing with and trying to do recently. So that was a lot of fun.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, so now you caught us up. You were in New York, and then you.
We
Now, the
actually,
reason why you stayed there is because you originally had planned to be there a little bit earlier in the UK, but there was some kind of an issue that prevented that.
not entirely. So we planned to when we booked these trips. So Justice is not the greatest. He has a really hard time sleeping on airplanes, especially for overnight flights or long distances. Fortunately, don't really have that problem. I can sleep pretty much anywhere. But I thought, well, this will be really nice. It's vacation. I'm going to book us a nice flight in business class with lie flat seats. And Justice's one request was, can we be on the airplane with the fewest number of people? And I was like, we're talking like 777s and 747s here. So we actually decided to fly out of New York before I had actually looked at all of the details of different flights, just because there's a lot more options. So I was like, look, we could do a daytime flight if you wanted to. We could do an evening flight. Like, I'm going to be in Pennsylvania anyway. It's a nice place to meet up. We'll collect ourselves there, fly over to the UK. And then I went, oh, I know what we could do. Let me look into this. So British Airways has a flight on an A318 that is all business class. It's only 32 seats. And if you book it far enough in advance, it's usually not any more expensive than a regular business class.
That's the replacement call sign for
Concorde. I know,
Yeah,
which is really
I know.
kind of
Very sad.
Yeah, it's really sad.
It's very similar.
We've given it the same call sign, and now we have a 318 as opposed to the Concorde flying it.
Is that the one that goes right into London City?
London City goes into London City, and then I was like, when we'll get to London City, and then we have a few days before the Goodwood revival starts, so we could basically either stay in London, we could go someplace else in Europe, we could do anything from there. It's really easy to catch another flight somewhere. Well, about 2 weeks before our planned travel is when British Airways decided their pilots union was going on strike. So yeah, that unfortunately affected our outbound flight. Was right in the middle of the strike days, so had to scramble a little bit. So it didn't quite work out the way I planned. We did end up down the back of a 777, but it was okay.
But just
with a lot of other
We survived with a lot of other people. It was a full flight, yes. And then we ended up going to Edinburgh for a few days to just sightsee and
the new.
Excuse me.
Did you eat haggis, Steph?
Yes, we did.
Well done.
Yeah.
Was it wrapped in a sheep's stomach?
No, this was fried.
Oh, fried haggis.
It was actually really good. It was good.
It's actually very tasty.
Yeah,
I like
tasty.
haggis. Yeah.
And we had haggis on. We had like a pulled pork sandwich, and you could have a haggis spread as one of the condiments on it.
Oh, okay.
That was also good. Yeah.
There you go.
So it was lovely, beautiful city. I'd never been before. It was nice to walk around for a few days and take in some of the sights.
That pretty much covers almost every. I mean,
I think
did you
that's
ever
everything
go back
I've
to work
done.
after we did the last show?
When did we do the last show?
I don't know.
I don't know
Last
what day it
week?
is.
Yeah, it was
Thursday or
last
something, I don't know.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Last Thursday. I went to work on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I will
Got
be back
one
to work
day in.
next week. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Excellent. Any more?
Oh yeah, I did also go to Niagara Falls last weekend.
Oh yeah.
Thanks,
I forgot.
Liz.
Thanks, Liz. What I really need to be doing is looking through all my photos that I've taken from the past. No, I had so I got to Erie, Pennsylvania on Saturday afternoon and had a few hours to kill, like 6 or 7. And I really didn't see any reason to stay in Erie since I wasn't really resting and preparing for a race per se. And I said, I've never been to Niagara Falls. It's 2 hours away. I can get there before it's dark. Take a Maid of the Mist tour. And then I was there. I was like, I really should wait until it's dark so I can see them lit up from the Canadian side. So I had my passport with me. So I just walked across the bridge, had dinner in Canada, saw the falls all lit up at night, which was beautiful, and then drove back to Erie.
I've never seen them. That's another one of those things that I.
Yeah, it was a list item. Like I should go see Niagara Falls because.
Jeff, how easy would it for you to be to bid a long Buffalo overnight?
Oh,
It's only a 40-minute drive.
That goes.
Yeah, it's not far from. Oh no, it's not that far from Buffalo.
That goes a lot more
It's so
senior.
close.
Well, I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay.
We've got a listener
Beautiful.
from Buffalo. Don't we have a listener, Joe, from Buffalo?
We do. We have a APG librarian named Tiffany.
Librarian.
Tiffany.
Yeah,
That,
right
was
there.
there
I'm
as
sure she'd be willing to take you.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Joe
it's
from
just a-
Buffalo. Huh.
Yeah, Joe from Buffalo.
Sounds familiar.
He's on Slack. That's BUF, so I assume that's
Yeah,
Buffalo.
That's Buffalo. Yep. And
Yeah.
and I've seen Joe a couple of times in Buffalo and Pittsburgh for Wings Over Pittsburgh back in.
Excellent. Well, it's
20
his suggestion that has prompted tonight's plain tale.
I know.
Mhm.
I heard that.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
You know
Wow, what a
these things. You're
coinkydink.
so clever.
No, not really.
Not that clever.
No, not that clever. Anything else you want to tell us, Steph?
I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of things.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
at
if
my
you think of
quota
something-
for things. I'm sure there's something that I've forgotten that I'm missing, and I
If you
don't
think
know.
of something, just, go ahead and fill us in.
Will do.
Okay. Nick, since you're right there next to Steph, we'll keep it over there on that camera. How have you been, sir, and what have you been up to?
Not a great deal. Preparing for a lecture coming up, which I'm giving about the F-18 and the tornado. And that's a new lecture, so I've got to do about 30 or 40 slides. I'm getting all photographs together. And very kindly, Jeff Lee, big shout out for him. He has provided me a number of fantastic tornado photographs. I didn't have very many. And so that's helped a great deal. And I have plenty of F-18 pictures. F-18 is very photogenic. You've got to really work hard to make the tornado look nice. But there you go. Jeff managed. He's
Hey,
marvelous.
do you know? Hey, ask him if he has any 141 pictures. I need some.
I don't think he had a lens with a big enough wide angle. But
Shut up.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I've been working hard on that lecture and doing this week's Plain Tale because I was busy over the weekend and didn't have a lot of time. And also a wonderful shout out for Greg Willits, who very kindly has done some audio work for me for tonight's Plain Tale. And it sounds brilliant and turns a nice or a good story into a really poignant story. So brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, I thought when you asked me if I knew anybody with an American accent that could do some dramatic reading, I thought, oh, I know just the guy.
Is he a professional voiceover artist or actor?
He
Voice actor?
was one of the ones that started the StarQuest Production Network. He and his wife, Jennifer, along with Father Roderick back in, 2005, 2006. That was how I got into podcasting, through the StarQuest Production Network. And he was the CEO, or the president of the nonprofit, and his wife, Jennifer, the CFO. Now, my wife took over for Jennifer when she and Greg Willits left to pursue radio. And they were on Sirius Satellite XM radio for a number of years, doing a daily 3-hour show on the Catholic channel in New York. And so he's got a lot of experience in media, and he's been podcasting from the very beginning. It started in 2005, I believe, or maybe even 2004. He's one of the early ones. And so, yeah, he's got a lot of history in doing that sort of thing.
Well, he's got a great voice, particularly for what he did for tonight for me. So if
he's
you're
a good friend of
Greg,
mine. And
thanks very much.
I doubt he'll listen, but I did send him the finished product, by the way.
Oh,
and
good.
He was very impressed with with your production, and he said it really made it so much more intense for him, because he was just reading the diary entries, and when he heard it all put together in the actual end of the story, he said that gave him goosebumps.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't have done it without him. It wouldn't have been nearly as good. So thanks,
anyway.
Greg.
There you go. So yeah, folks, if you haven't picked up on it yet, please make sure that you listen to this week's installment of the Plain Tales. It's awesome, as they usually are, but this is extra especially awesome this week. Okay. Anything else, sir? Bowling, lawn bowling is all over with now?
Yeah, just about. I was due to play a match tomorrow, but I've pulled out of it so that I can be around and entertain, because we've got Nev coming over and Matt Smith from PT UK.
Wow.
And with Steph and Justice here, we're going to have a little dinner. And the only other thing is a reminder to anyone who might be around Frankfurt next weekend, the 21st, that Jeff and I will be over at the meetup at Frankfurt Airport on Saturday, and in the evening at a local hostelry for a few beers, and we will be speaking our very best German to all the locals in practicing and all that. Yeah. Ich bin ein Dummkopf and other such well-known phrases.
Du Kopf. So
Your
if you're
Schweinhund, yo.
if you end up going to this event in Frankfurt and you're looking for me, just look on the floor somewhere. That's probably where I'll be.
Yeah, fast asleep along with me. We'll probably be cuddled up together on the floor.
Oh, that's
Oh,
So cute.
Yeah. All
Adorable.
right. Very good. I look forward to seeing you in person, Nick, next week.
Certainly. Pleasure will be mine.
Yes, it will.
I should drop my trip and go.
Dana.
Yes, you should.
So what have you been up to, sir?
Fun and sun.
Fun and sun.
Yes.
Okay.
I went scuba diving.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, it sounded like you weren't going to be with us this week because you were going to be somewhere down in Mexico, in the clear blue waters off of Cozumel.
Yes, Cozumel. Some fantastic diving, actually.
Mhm.
Beautiful, surprisingly beautiful condition of the reef. I'm always a bit concerned whenever I go diving anywhere to see how healthy the waters are and how healthy the fish life are, and how healthy the coral life is, because it's really a telltale sign of the condition of the oceans. And so I was very, very pleased to find it in very, very good shape, very healthy, and clearly being taken very well care of by the local authorities to make sure that it's not damaged terribly by divers. The briefings were very entailed as to what you can and cannot touch, which means you really just couldn't touch anything. And that's about it. But there were a few things going on that I decided to cut it short and pay homage to the Mexican people and say sayonara. So
Wait a minute. I don't think that's part of the
Adios.
Spanish language. There we go. That's it.
hasta luego, hasta la vista, baby.
You were
Adios,
diving off in the waters
muchachos.
off of Japan. Okay.
Yeah, I was only kidding, by the way.
I know.
It got me though. Yeah, somebody's paying attention at least.
Yeah, we're listening to it. We're hanging on every word.
Every word. So yeah, it was the diving there was is always, as always, excellent. As far as for me goes, as I wouldn't say a professional underwater photographer, but a very in tuned and somewhat skilled underwater photographer. It's actually a very challenging environment for me, and that is I am constantly moving, because between Cozumel and the Yucatan Peninsula, or Playa del Carmen primarily, it's a pretty active current there, anywhere between about a half knot to about 2 knots of current constantly flowing, which for an underwater photographer, and Nick can, I'm sure, relate to this, you want your photography to be still. And I'm in a three-dimensional world, very much like flying an airplane. All right. And when you fly an airplane, of course, you're in a three-dimensional world, and the winds are always moving around, turbulence, and it's very much the same under the water. So for me to get really good photographs, I really need more of a still environment. It's very difficult to try to take photographs of something as you're going past it at a pretty good clip. So I did, and was able to get roughly 450 photographs. I've gone through about half of them, and I did come up with some really, really cool photographs on this trip. I'm not sure how I'm going to post those. Or
Yeah, you can share them if you want. You can upload them to the to Evernote, make a folder, and then we can link everybody to that in the show notes if you want people to see your photography.
I'm not on Evernote anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, you can send them to me, a link to them somehow.
Yeah, somehow. I'll figure. We'll talk offline. But anyways, so it was the diving itself was fantastic. So I enjoyed that. Came home, and I thought you were doing the show yesterday. Actually, the way the conversations are going, I actually did look at the Google calendar and saw there was no show, and I did see something else on there, which we'll talk about in a second. And then I saw the traffic this morning, and surprise, surprise, I was able to join the show excitedly, being that I flew back yesterday afternoon and was not able to be on the show. So I saw that, and I saw it in Google Calendar, and I said, I will be here today. I rearranged my schedule that I had made. So here I am.
Excellent.
And on the calendar, I happened to notice that Captain Jeff, I'm going to scoot it over to you, and that is that you had something going on this week that I'm curious to know about, because I'm starting my preparations for that as well.
Now, don't do too much prep work because it's pretty easy this year. Recurrent training is, depending on your airline and what the agreement is between your airline and the FAA or whatever the regulatory agency is, as far as the time frame is concerned. Now for us at Acme, it's every 9 months. A new baby's born. We have to go into the box, we call it, the simulator. And I know it sounds like an exciting thing to do. Yeah, it is, if your job doesn't depend on performing satisfactorily in it.
How ironic that we have to go into the box every 9 months.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay, we'll leave that one just hanging there. But yeah, so it was my turn in the simulator this week. Again, I have to figure out what I'm doing wrong with my bidding for training, because I ended up going on my early month and D periods. I would never bid for that, but apparently I have a bid in there that was requesting that kind of thing.
Ouch.
So I need to find somebody that knows what they're doing with the PBS and the training bidding, because I've screwed it up, I think, now for about 4 or 5 years. You know how to do it?
I raised my hand because guess what? I get B periods on, I think, on a Monday and Tuesday.
See, that's what I usually do. I actually purposely go on the weekend and do like A or B periods, which is like when normal people are like alive and living and, you know, going about their day. But the D period briefing started at 5 o'clock. You get into the box about 7, and then you're out, you know, like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I don't know. It's just too late for me. I'm used to the early morning kind of life. Anywho, did that on Wednesday and Thursday. And so just last night, finished the second day of training, which is basically your maneuvers validation, your check ride, I guess you could call it. And everything went well. So I'm good for another 9 months, unless I screw something up.
Yay!
And how many does that leave
Do
left?
I was doing
retire?
I was doing the math while I was in the simulator building, going, how many more of these do I have to do? And I have about, what, let's see, 48 plus about 3 or 4, so about 52 months left. And every 9 months, if I did the math correctly, it's like 5.7 recurrent trainings left.
Oh, that's still way too many.
I know. I was thinking, wow, you know, I probably don't have
I think
that
there's
many.
gonna be like 3, maybe 4 at the most.
But then probably throw in another full school between now and then, because I think my hopes for staying on this particular airplane are probably not very realistic.
Not looking good.
But anyway.
Yeah, but you love seniority.
Yeah.
And if you decide that you don't want to have to go through a full school,
I could go to the 717.
you
and
could
do
go
a
for
6-day
717.
school. Yeah.
Of course, there was something very interesting announced.
Oh, what?
717, they're opening it was in the AE information, but they're looking at opening a Minneapolis base on that airplane.
Yay!
So
That's exciting.
I think Atlanta's going to be.
You don't
I
want to be.
don't get it. It just seems like they're shrinking Atlanta. But anyways, yeah.
No,
so
I don't want to be in Minneapolis.
I know.
No offense to all of you up there living in the Great White North, but it ain't for me.
Nah,
Thank
not
you
for
very
me
much.
either as well. So, but
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of variability, and you know, it's a very dynamic situation, as we like to say, between now and then. And if it just becomes too overwhelming for me, I'll just retire like Nick did.
well, hey,
Just give up.
Yeah, just say,
Quit.
"Forget it."
Yeah,
not
I
putting
didn't
up with
really
this crap
retire.
anymore.
I did indeed give up.
Just kidding. I didn't mean it that way.
Give up. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's like, I don't need
Quit.
to stay until 65. I can leave before then, right?
you can
Yeah,
if you
of course you
decide to.
can.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people would be very happy if I did.
Well, the
One's
podcasting
right there.
community would, and that's truthful, because you'd be just putting out all those crew logs and doing extra things for the show and lots of meetups and
Sleeping.
I remember back in 2001 when they announced at the company that the MD-88 would be retired by 2005, I think it was, maybe
Yep.
2006.
I do too.
And I'm now straight ahead to 2019. So that's what, 14 years past?
Give or take.
So I'm thinking I'm going to retire off the MD-88
You
and
may
MD-90.
just do that.
And I may just do that.
Well, the guy, my instructor for last night's session, the guy that gave me the check ride, he flew the DC-9, and he was there during the entire DC-9 fleet retirement. And yeah, he said it didn't go quite as quickly as they thought. And he said he would not be surprised. And he's got some skin in the game as well, because he's a MD-88, MD-90 instructor. And if it goes away, then if he wants to hang around and continue to instruct on it, he's going to have to switch to something else. He's a what do they call that? Acme Ground Services. He's like, it's a not Acme Airlines specifically, a kind of a third party contracting service that a lot of the pilots that retire end up coming back and being instructors in the simulator, and a lot of experience. And speaking of experience, we were talking after the ride last night, and I was mentioning I was in MD-90 one. I think we only have one MD-90 sim now, right? I think
That's correct. We only have one. We've always only had one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
I thought we had more. Anyway, this thing is a piece of, as far as the lateral, the aileron banking of the airplane is very unusually sensitive. Not anything like the real airplane. I mean, the simulator is always kind of a little weird as far as the way the controls feel. But, and I was mentioning, I said, I wish that there was a way for me to bid specific simulators, because I would have loved to have been in simulator 88-4, which is, I think, if you ask anybody who's been around for a while, that's definitely the best simulator that we have. It is the most like the real airplane, and it's not so sensitive on the controls, especially the banking. And he goes, "Oh yeah, you mean right out the door over there?" Like he was pointing behind me, and I go, "Yeah." And he said, that was the simulator that we used when Denzel Washington was in town to learn how to look and act like a pilot in the movie Flight. If you all remember that film, it wasn't too long ago, something between 5 and 10 years ago, I believe.
Yep.
And,
He may have looked like a pilot, but he really didn't act like a real pilot.
Yeah, that's true. That was kind of the story, is that he was an alcoholic and on drugs and everything else. So, and you'll remember the airplane that was featured in that movie looked a lot like a Mad Dog, except not quite. They did some computer generated imagery to make it look a little bit different, and it did some things that weren't really realistic at all. But I think a lot of us just went, well, yeah, it wasn't really close to reality, but that wasn't the point of the movie. The point of the movie was about his addiction and coming back from it and becoming whole again. So anyway, this instructor was his instructor. And so Larry Goodrich, the instructor pilot, had, I think he said, like 3 simulator sessions with Denzel and the guy that played his co-pilot. He was also on set over at Fulton County, Charlie Brown. That's where they flew an airplane over there to get some of the outdoor scenes. And he was a big part of he was kind of the, what would you call it? The representative of Acme, and trying to, get Denzel and the other actor, acting like pilots and doing certain things, kind of a technical
advisor.
There we go. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you, Steph.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. He says, "Yeah, my name is in the credits." I went, "Oh, that's pretty neat." Yeah.
Completely unrelated, but when we were in Edinburgh, they were filming the Fast and Furious 9, but there were no Vin Diesel sightings, unfortunately, by us. Yes, but they kept closing off various streets and blocking things off. So, anyway,
which number was that? That the guy died, one of the stars died.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Actually, in the movie, but
between I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 6 or so.
So there were no cars. They were all CG cars.
There were some cars.
Oh, okay.
But we couldn't really get close enough to see much of anything. They were just closing off streets where we wanted to walk down.
Frustrating.
You know, they closed off a block, and then to get to the other side of the block, you had to like go down this hill around the corner, up like 40 flights of stairs. And
I mean, they'd have to close off the blocks pretty quick, wouldn't they? Because these cars go quite fast. So presumably the blokes were like going, "Close it off now, quick! Here they come."
movie
Not like
magic
that?
is involved.
What accent was that exactly?
I've no
I
idea.
think that was just Nick's accent.
It was a
Anyway.
good one though. I liked it.
Just a random aside.
Yeah. You know what? I was just thinking about something, Nick. You had kind of covered what you were doing the last few days between the last episode and today's episode, and I think you neglected to mention something. And it had
Well,
something to do with-
considering the state of my memory, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I believe. Let me see if I can juggle your brain a little bit. The 9th of September.
That's the 9th day of the 9th month. Yes, it's
Yeah, it's your
that was
birthday.
about 4 days ago.
It's your birthday.
Was it?
Yes,
Oh,
that's when you
damn.
turned 65,
Yeah,
and
I'm trying
we
not to
have-
remember these things.
we have some audio feedback that I'd like to play if you don't mind. Here we go.
How many times have you been asked what's your favorite airplane? I get asked it a lot, all the time. What's my answer? Many of you know it or can guess it already. The PBY Catalina. No, that's not it. That's one of my favorites, no doubt. But so is the DC-3, the B-17, the A-10, and the P-38. But really, my favorite is the F-4U Corsair. Fooled you again? That's not it either. It's the DC-8. Okay. Let me be honest. Really, it's a Dornier DOX flying boat. Nope. Wow, you're easy to fool. And I could go on and on. I have no favorite. No, that's not true either. They're all my favorites. I have the same problem with food, which is part of the reason why I look the way I do. But that's not the case with actors. I mean, I do have a few favorite actors, some modern day, some from long ago. Many you're probably not familiar with, including my very favorite. My guess is that most of you never heard of Victor McLaglen. Born in 1886, Victor McLaglen joined the Royal Army in 1900 and was stationed in the Life Guards at Windsor Castle until he was thrown out for only being 14. Later, he worked as a wrestler and heavyweight boxer. He even fought against the legendary Jack Johnson. At 6'3" tall, Victor McLaglen was a big guy, especially for back in the early 20th century. He was so big and so tough that he took a boxing job with a circus where they offered $25 to anyone who could go 3 rounds with him. After that, he re-upped for World War I, and in 1918, he took the heavyweight championship for the British Army. Victor McLaglen got into the film industry early on. Some of his many famous co-stars included Boris Karloff, Alan Hale, Ward Bond, Shirley Temple, Hank Worden, Harry Carey Jr., and Freddie Bartholomew.
Oh,
I think he was clicking away there, and he
Yeah,
clicked
he-
himself
He
out of the
clicked
show.
himself back into
Yeah,
the show.
he killed himself on that one.
Yep.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye.
All right, in the
Thanks for
middle
that.
of Micah's lovely piece for you there, Nick.
Yeah, what a shame.
Oh, well, we do need.
I was
Jeff
just
to-
trying to work out how a drunken Irish actor was gonna remind me of my birthday.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a wonderful connection there.
Yeah,
I was
so-
doing some fancy finger work,
Yeah, we
We
knew
knew
you
it.
were.
We gathered.
and I did one swipe too many. Apparently,
Did it crash, or did
I
you
was
just?
no.
hit
I
the
was
red
trying
button?
to. I was trying to recrop the photo of Victor McLaglen, or whatever his name is, that Micah was talking about.
Mhm.
And so I decided I would resize the window. And then what happened is that it resized the StreamYard window.
Oh.
And I thought, well, I can only see the chat. So let me just swipe it over here a little bit so I can see the video. And apparently it took that to mean, oh, you want to move to the previous browser page on that tab. No, I did not want to do that. And that took me out. So let me just back up Micah's audio a little bit. There'll be some overlapping a little bit. And let me get back to the screen share. It was going so well, wasn't it?
That was.
Swimmingly.
Thanks. Okay, so we have, there we go, Victor back in view, and I'll try to be more careful this time. I'll fix it in post.
Stars included Boris Karloff, Alan Hale, Ward Bond, Shirley Temple, Hank Worden, Harry Carey Jr., and Freddie Bartholomew. In 1935, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor in the John Ford film The Informer. In 1952, he was again nominated, this time for Best Supporting Actor in The Quiet Man. My favorite film of his, though, has got to be the 1939 adventure Gunga Din, where he shared the bill with Cary Grant and Douglas Fairbanks Jr., playing the role of Sergeant McChesney. But he's probably best known as a character actor in John Ford's Cavalry trilogy, Fort Apache, She Wore Yellow Ribbon, and Rio Grande, always playing a sergeant under the command of John Wayne. There are so many scenes that come to mind when I think of Victor McLaglen. Two are particularly special to me, though. The first is in Gunga Din, where in response to a line from Douglas Fairbanks Jr., he silently grins. But it's not just any grin. The corners of his mouth slowly turn upward. Little by little, his lips move to a smile. Eventually, his mouth gently widens and his teeth become visible, and his eyes light up for the camera. When watching that scene, you can't help but smile. The other scene I think of comes from She Wore Yellow Ribbon, in the role as Top Sergeant Quincannon. When another sergeant says to Victor McLaglen, "You're out of uniform, Quincannon," the obviously intoxicated top sergeant replies, "Oh, am I? Well, I'm in the proper uniform, the uniform of a retired gentleman." So why am I telling you about Victor McLaglen? Well, he sort of reminds me of someone we all know. As I said earlier, Victor McLaglen was a big, strapping man, a tough guy who could take care of himself. He had a sense of duty to his country and certainly enjoyed a drink or two. He wasn't afraid to show his sensitive side. He had a warm heart and a big grin of a smile that could light up a whole room. Now, the man he reminds me of doesn't really look like Victor McLaglen, although I think they're about the same height. This man now wears the proper uniform of a retired gentleman, and I hope he's grinning that great big room-brightening smile of his when he hears this. So from here in Portland, Maine, happy birthday, Captain Nick. From your main man, Micah.
Wasn't that nice?
Well, it certainly was. And thank you very much indeed, Micah. And it would indeed have been the day I would have been forced to retire. As it was, I pulled the plug a little early. But actually, I've seen all those movies. And I remember him well, that actor. As I recall, he played a drunken Irishman. So I'm not quite sure exactly where the likeness is, but there you go.
I can see it very clearly.
Okay.
Maybe not the Irishman part of it, but the drunken part.
Yeah, the drunken part, yeah.
Now, you look at these pictures, and I think I do see a little bit of resemblance between Captain Nick and Victor McLaglen. Let me get that photo back up.
I think you've got an overactive imagination.
Okay, never mind. Of course, you're much better looking than he is, right?
I don't think so. I'm not in Hollywood, or wasn't in Hollywood.
Well, you don't have to be good looking to be in Hollywood.
Very true. Otherwise, John Wayne would never have got there.
Anyway, so thank you, Micah, for sending that in to commemorate.
Yeah, very kind of you, Micah. You always do marvelous jobs with those things. They're fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, some more administrative issues here. I'm going to play a little bit of feedback and then talk briefly about the subject that Ahmad brings up.
Hello, APG crew. It's Ahmad Danhamidu from Abuja, Nigeria. I was just going through Google Play Store and I noticed that the APG app is no longer there. Or is it still there? I also checked on the APG website and I didn't see any links to it. What I did see was a link to Google Podcasts and something else similar to that. Is the app still out there or has it been replaced? Thank you.
Well, that was news to me. I went, wait a minute, what? I still have it on my Android device. I have one token Android device just to see how the app functions on it. And it's still on there, but that's because I downloaded it from the Google Play Store before I guess it was removed. So, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that we have Android and, well, we used to have an Android app, and we still have an iOS app. And there have been things going on behind the scenes. The guy that came up with the whole thing for us, set it up, kind of, handed it over to us. And I don't have all the required credentials that this man has. And it's just kind of a mess. And we're just kind of, what do they say, cobbling it together and trying to hold it together with dental floss and speed tape. And it's just not working that well. So we're looking at different options. One could be trying to come up with the proper credentials necessary to keep this thing fully under my control with the company that we're using to do the apps. That's one option. Another option is the company that we use to what we call it, serve the files. The company is called Liberated Syndication. All these audio files are stored on this big server. This company is set up specifically to do that, and they do have apps for iOS and Android, and not quite as fully functioned as what we have now, but it still does the app trick. And the third option would be just to say, you know what, doing the app thing was fun, but we don't need to do that anymore. In fact, I think that our website is, what do they call that? Adaptable or whatever. That you can look at it on a tablet device, a phone device, or whatever, and it kind of adapts to. I don't know if that's the exact technical term for it, but it works just fine. It functions just fine on any kind of device. I know it's not the same as having a dedicated app, but that might be what we do. So we're looking into this, trying to decide how to go forward with it. The having an app is not cheap, by the way. A lot of the money that you all send to us for the coffee fund goes toward things like paying for the yearly fee for doing the apps and that kind of thing. So, so that is what I wanted to say about that. So Ahmad, you're not losing your mind. No, it's no longer on the App Store, but if you have it on another device, I don't know if you can move it from one to another, but if you had it to begin with, it still should be on your phone. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but that's
it
all
in the App Store, but that's probably because I've got it on my iPad.
No, it was
you
just
do see it?
Android.
Yeah,
just
I'm-
Android, correct?
Yeah, Android.
Oh, just Android. Okay,
Right.
So
Yeah, the
iOS
iOS
is
is still
okay.
on the iOS store.
yeah,
Yes.
it's still on the App Store. Yes.
Yeah, but we're talking Android here.
Okay.
And I looked on I have a Samsung Tab tablet, and looked for it on the App Store, and I couldn't find it. So it went bye-bye. Anyway, so as I said, we're working on that. We'll hopefully come up with a good solution. If you're out there, a listener who knows a lot about these apps and can help us out with that, please send an email to me, Jeff at airlinepilotguy.com, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, and just wanted to mention our good friend Sue, Comanche Sue, right? Is that what she goes by?
Correct.
Okay. She says, "Dear APG crew, with heartfelt thanks, I'm making my first contribution to the Coffee Fund. It was a nice contribution. I've taken your comments that I shouldn't contribute while doing flight training, literally, but that's all changed. I've received my first official paycheck from my first official CFI job."
Hey, well
Yay.
done. Come on,
Congratulations, Sue.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Awesome news.
She says, "Flying is not my primary vocation, but it is my true passion, my avocation. I'm grateful to you all for the many enjoyable hours of listening, learning, and encouragement along my way, and I'm proud to be part of the APG community. Your friend in flying, Comanche Sue." It's right there, Comanche Sue. Yeah, so she's been a big part of our APG community for a number of years, and it was so nice to see her again at Oshkosh this year.
Yeah, that was the first time I met Sue. That was very nice.
The first time I met her was 2 years before, when I made that quick visit to
Yeah.
Oshkosh. Yeah.
The first time I met her as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
So she is she's just a a wonderful person. So thank you, Sue, and thank you for the really nice contribution to our coffee fund. We do appreciate that. And speaking of coffee fund, unless there's something I've missed, I think we've covered everything there. Why don't we do some singing?
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Okay, the coffee fund is set up specifically so that you, if you have the financial resources to do so, contribute to our cause, the Airline Pilot Guy Show. And I really mean that. And Sue took us literally, as she said in her note. She was spending money on flight training. Didn't have money to spend on this thing, but now she does. So thank you, Sue. If you want to become part of the Coffee Fund cadre, you can do it a couple different ways. We have the Classic Fund, which is or Classic Method, which is a way to do like a one-time contribution or a recurring contribution. And since the last episode, Sue and George Leslie, he does a recurring payment via the Coffee Fund Classic Method. The other way to do it is to become a patron of the show via patreon.com. And since the last episode, we have Kirsten Norris and John Feldman, who has been a patron since 2016. He bumped up his contribution 150%. So thank you, John, for that. And if you want to learn more about it, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did, and we will too.
Stand by for news.
This from BBC.com. Magistrates in France have dropped charges against Air France and Airbus over a mid-Atlantic plane crash in 2009 that killed all 228 people on board. The Airbus A330 was flying from Rio de Janeiro to Paris. It stalled in a storm and plunged into the sea. On Thursday, the magistrates looking into manslaughter charges brought by victims' relatives decided that there were not enough grounds to prosecute. They blamed the plane's crew for losing control after speed sensors froze. The main association of victims' families called the magistrate's decision an insult to the memory of the victims and announced plans to appeal. Air France, in 2012, a civil investigation found a combination of technical failure and human error had led to the loss of Flight 447 on the 1st of June 2009. Investigator in charge, Alain Boulard, said the crew had almost lost complete control of the situation. The report by the French Aviation Authority highlighted faults with the Airbus 330's airspeed sensors, which confused the pilots, but it also pointed to inappropriate action by the pilots. One of the mistakes of the crew was to point the nose of the aircraft upwards after it stalled instead of pointing it down. And we all know basic aerodynamics in flying, that if you're in a stall, you don't point the nose of the airplane up. You point it down, or at least unload the wings. Anyway, that accident was the worst disaster in the history of Air France. So, what do you think about that? Saying they don't think they have enough evidence that anybody is liable.
Well, so what did it say here? I have to go back to the right spot where it talked about the civil investigation found that it was a combination of technical failure and human error. So certainly there is that human error component to it. But yeah,
I guess they were saying that doesn't.
I guess they're saying against Air France in general and Airbus. So not even the human error part of it, but the technical failings part.
If I understand this correctly, so in a civil lawsuit, the plaintiffs won. but in the manslaughter charges, which would be a criminal lawsuit, right? So maybe they thought that it didn't rise to the criminal level. Is that, or am I reading?
I don't
it
know
too
how that
much
works
today? I don't know.
in France. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know if they found there wasn't enough, if they didn't have enough to go on to say that it would be. It depends on what their definition of manslaughter is in France, I suppose, and how they're defining that. So.
Certainly in the UK, there is a much higher level of proof required for a criminal prosecution. So I think that's probably the requirement in that, they couldn't settle on enough blame that could be allocated to the pilots. That would be my guess.
Was that you?
That was unusual.
I looked over. I thought it was Nick at first. I was like, no, he didn't.
Yeah, everybody's looking
anything.
around. I'm thinking, oh, they don't know it's me.
Yeah, we did.
But I'll do it a few more times. So they know
Usually it's me, actually, that does that. And I knew it wasn't me.
Yeah, it was me. Duh. All right. Yeah, I think it's the same deal here in the U.S., Nick. It's a much higher level of, what would you call it? Certainty that something, somebody
burden of proof.
Burden of proof. Hey, they should probably use that term.
They probably should.
Yeah. Oh,
I think they do.
Probably do. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, speaking of burden of proof and charges leveled against a person, this was an interesting one. American Airlines. Let's see, what was this from? A couple different sources I have here. Miami Herald. American Airlines mechanic appeared in federal court Friday on a sabotage charge, accusing him of disabling a navigation system. And I put in parentheses, I don't think it was in the navigation system. Anyway, on a flight with 150 people aboard before it was scheduled to take off from Miami International Airport earlier this summer. The reason, according to the criminal complaint filed in a Miami federal court, Abdul Majid Maruf Ahmed Alani, a veteran employee, was upset over stalled union contract negotiations. It had nothing to do with terrorism. This is supposedly union contract stuff. None of the passengers and crew on the flight to Nassau were injured because his tampering with the so-called air data module. That's what it is, actually. I love these journalists. First, they call it a navigation system, and then when they use the actual device that was tampered with, the air data module, they go, so-called.
But the real question is, what aircraft picture did they use to go with the story here?
You know, I deleted the picture of the airplane, so I'm not sure which one they used. I'm sure it was exactly the right airplane.
Yes.
Because they always do. So here's the deal. I thought, I'm going to switch from Miami Herald to something that has a little bit more accurate data, like Aviation Safety Network. And the narrative here, aircraft operating as American Airlines Flight 2834 received multiple warnings concerning one of the air data computers just before takeoff, not aborting the takeoff as the Miami Herald mentioned, but they weren't in the takeoff phase yet. They were taxiing out. Of course, we all know that any surface that an airplane is resting upon is a runway, and any movement
the
by
tarmac.
the airplane, yeah, but I mean they call it a runway too.
Oh,
They're on a taxiway, and then any kind of movement of the airplane is takeoff. But that's not really true. Anyway, just before takeoff, the flight returned to the parking position. Investigations revealed that a piece of foam was glued into one of the air data computers feed lines, generating false data to the flight instruments. This piece of foam was intentionally inserted by a mechanic who tried, by technically delaying the flight, to generate overtime for financial reasons. So he's thinking, what can I do to make the airplane come back and require maintenance? And, I'll be here and I'll get extra money for doing this extra maintenance on this airplane that I basically...
And I'll just happen to know what the problem is and be able to fix it eventually, probably.
Where did that come from? So let's see. I guess they had some video of him walking up to the airplane and then about 7 minutes worth of fooling around in the E&E compartment. And then the problem was rectified because he took the piece of foam out of the. Or actually, that was when he was putting the video was of him doing something, and that was when they surmised that he placed the piece of foam in the line. So, from what I'm gathering, this sounds to me like a pedostatic line that feeds into the air data computer system, and it was blocked, and they probably didn't notice it until after they started the other engine, second engine, doing some checks. Probably got some ECAM messages. I think it was an Airbus. Does it say here? It did in one of my articles. I just don't, or maybe it was a 7.3. Well, it doesn't matter. It was
actually 7.5 in the Miami Herald, of course.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's correct then.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we don't know.
It's definitely an A380.
Oh, yeah. Or, yeah.
American doesn't fly.
Or
those.
it could be a Antonov 124.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a jumbo jet.
Yeah, jumbo.
A jumbo or a super jumbo jet.
Flying from Miami to Nassau.
Yeah, I don't think so. It was some kind of a narrow body, and I just don't recall exactly what model it was. But anyway, that's not smart, because just think if for whatever reason they didn't notice the issue before they took off, and then now they're in a situation where they're in the air and they have unreliable airspeed and bad indications. And now we're getting close to the scenario that we've heard about regarding the MAX, although that's a little bit different because that's a system that is separate from the air data computer system. But you get the idea. This is not a very smart thing to do, just to try to get a little extra money and a little extra overtime work.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. What on earth was he thinking? These guys are supposed to have some sort of education in aircraft safety. I don't know.
He was probably thinking at the time. It seemed like a good idea. Didn't think it through.
No.
Okay, Steph. This is. Oh, never mind. That was a little one down from here. So let's hold off on that. Well, let's just do it since I just said Steph. Item D.
Sure. So this is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You want to do it?
I can read it.
Yeah. You're
Sure.
a parachutist.
Yeah. So this is from BBC.com, I guess.
I mean, I don't know if I'd call you a parachutist or a skydiver. I think skydivers.
Yeah, most people would say skydiver, but parachutist works.
Well, hopefully you're a
technically the same.
parachutist at the end of the
At the end of the skydive, yeah. You want to be able to.
Otherwise, you don't do it very often.
I guess it depends on what phase of the jump you're actually in.
That might be a one-way trip. Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is it says RAF Lakenheath fighter jets in near miss with parachutists. Two free-falling parachutists nearly collided in midair with two U.S. fighter planes traveling at almost 350 miles per hour, a report revealed. The skydivers recorded the aircraft pass under them on helmet cameras as they fell at about 120 miles per hour, which is pretty typical. Pilots from RAF Lakenheath should have been told by air traffic control the Cambridgeshire parachute site was active, said the UK Air Prox Board. The U.S. Air Force Base was rebriefing crews to make them aware, it added. So the board was unable to establish just how close the two pairs came to colliding during the incident over Chatteris airfield on 17th April and classified it in the second highest danger category. The board was shown GoPro footage filmed from the helmet of one of the parachutists and could clearly see the F-15s passing beneath, said the report. The jets had made a turn shortly before to avoid a refueling tanker and then were handed over from air traffic controllers at RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire.
Coningsby.
Oh, Coningsby. I'm sorry. I just can't read. That's all. It's like a little ways away from the computer here. Coningsby.
Are doctors supposed to be able to read?
No, it's not one of our required skills. In Lincolnshire, to those at Lakenheath in Suffolk, home of the U.S. Air Force's 48th Fighter Wing. However, the frequency became busy just as they transferred, and so by the time the F-15 pilots checked in with the controller, they were already about to fly over Chatteris. The pilots should have known about its position and activities as part of their normal briefing routine, and either questioned air traffic control or avoided it. Operators from Chatteris Airfield, where several parachute clubs are based, call nearby air traffic controllers each morning to tell them if they are active, and the dropping aircraft also alerts them. The Airprox board said there was very little more that Chatteris could have done. The parachutists had no control over their speed or direction while in freefall, but could have opened their parachutes to slow their descent. Colonel Will Marshall, 48th Fighter Wing Commander, said UK airspace was incredibly complex and often congested. The safety of our aircrew, as well as those we share the skies with, is our number one priority. We are using this incident to reinforce the vital importance of situational awareness and attention to detail for all of our air traffic controllers and aircrew.
Well, Captain Nick, you're the only one here that has experience with flying low levels and that kind of thing over near Lake and Heath and these other places. Do you really look at these kind of advisories and possible risks when you're doing your route planning?
Well, they should be on the maps. So if you're actually, flying down a line on a map, yeah, you should have taken a look at those. And there's usually no terms of the day, so get briefed on them in the morning. What areas are active, etc. But if they're particularly small airfields that aren't active very often or not regularly, then I guess there is a reason why they might have been overlooked. But air traffic should have been aware of them, certainly if the dropping aircraft were speaking to air traffic.
Yeah.
And it sounds unfortunate that they were handed over just at the time when really someone should have been giving them avoiding action to make sure that it fly into it. So, I've an element of sympathy with the guys because, there is an awful lot going on in the UK airspace, and these guys are bimbling on at 8 or 9 miles a minute quite often. I think they were probably going as slow as 350 miles an hour, so probably doing a much more tactical speed unless they were in the instrument pattern. You can cover a huge amount of the UK airspace in a very short time. And it's, even with a moving map display, it's very hard to keep up with all the little danger areas, airfields, etc.
So you would agree with Colonel Will Marshall that the airspace is incredibly complex and often congested?
Well, I'd say it's not particularly complex. It's pretty simple, quite honestly.
Well,
but it is unless you're familiar. But it is quite congested. It's a bit of shark-infested custard down there, quite honestly. Much nicer up in Scotland, where I did most of my flying. Much freer and easier up there. There's not so much going on.
And that's why they picked it for you.
Yeah, because they knew I was terrible at navigation.
Which apparently is really true.
Yeah, so we've heard.
According to someone we know, a source close.
Exactly right. Yeah, I know. It's a bit sad, isn't it? But it is true, yes.
Does a skydiver become a parachutist when the parachute comes out?
Yes.
I suppose, yeah. I think that's
the key.
The consensus.
So if we're flying low level, it's in all possibility that they actually had their chutes out.
Depends on what how low they were going to deploy.
It would be interesting to actually see the real video that they took from the GoPro cameras.
You know what? I'm sure I could probably find that.
Yeah,
somewhere.
I'm waving the bullshit flag on the Airprox board because if you can get, it's not a difficult
Nick at
job.
airlinepilotguide.com.
If you can get the a similar camera to the ones the guys were using, it should be pretty easy to work out the focal length and the amount of the angle of the lens, and be very easy to work out what the distance was by comparing the size of the aircraft against known objects. So I don't think they tried very hard, quite honestly.
All right. Very
yeah, and there's a certain element that's skydiver responsibility as well, but it's all primarily before exiting the aircraft. And if you have aircraft that are traveling quite fast, it'd be near impossible to see them from the time you exit to the time you are in proximity to them.
I'm curious to know if the guys actually did employ their parachutes, because if they were concerned about an impact, they presumably would have done it straight away. One, it makes them more easily visual, and two, of course, it stops their descent and they don't get nearly so close. So
depends on at which point they actually saw the aircraft, because if it's a last minute thing,
if only we had the video.
Just go by. Yeah. We'll see.
Oh, damn.
What is going on in the chat room?
They're talking about horns.
Yeah, that's
It
what
has to do with. I have not listened to all of the new plane safety podcasts, but
I need
both.
to know.
Pip couldn't believe that the Airbus has a horn. Meh, meh.
Beep, beep.
Does
the
it?
88 even has a horn.
Yes, it does.
Well, because Pip says, "Ooh, I need to know if the Mad Cog, I think he means the Mad Dog, has a horn. Can Steph ask Jeff? Well, why don't you just ask me, Pip?
Yeah,
Because
why
he
am I
knows-
always doing all the asking?
Well, it's because you're probably the only one that's actually looking at what people are saying. in the
Yeah,
chat.
Nick and I are reading it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we sort of have a horn that is mounted down there on the bottom side near the E&E compartment, or maybe in the E&E compartment. I don't know exactly where it comes out.
It's it's actually in the nose.
Is it in the nose? Okay.
In the
And it's a very loud and annoying sounding horn. And the purpose of it is it's like what does it say? Ground crew call or something like that?
It's actually maintenance call button.
Maintenance call button. You hit the thing, it goes, "Meow." This is like really annoying.
It's
sound.
annoying to us. Nobody on the ground can hear it.
Yeah, they can't hear it. So-
Can you use it in the air?
Sure.
You could.
Yeah, I don't think
Nobody's
going
going to hear it.
Hear it.
But you, maybe.
Yeah.
You just need an air horn, right? Just
Yeah,
An air horn.
flying around.
open the
and
win- no, just on the ground. Just open the window and get your
No.
not a
Use the
literal
air horn in the air
not
and
a
the
little
ground
air
horn on the ground.
Yes.
Oh
do
my
that.
gosh. Look what you've done. to
I
us,
think
Jeff.
it would be funny for you to duck horn.
Me?
Quack, quack.
This is all
quack.
Pip's fault. I blame
Oh,
Pilot
no, I
Pip.
said in the chat room.
Oh,
I didn't
oh.
blame it on you, Steph.
Okay.
Well,
blame
when we
you
had
for
cabin crew visiting, if we passed another airplane, I'd always reach up and sound the horn because you could hear it in the cockpit, and she'd go, "What's that?" I said, "It's the horn. We have to sound it when we go past the other airplane so they can hear us."
We used to. I don't think I've ever done it in the Mad Dog, but in the 7.2, we used to hit the stall warning or the stick shaker test button, and it almost sounds like a machine gun. So you hear it.
Reassuring sounds coming
I will
from-
admit I've done that to a certain individual that was studying the batteries voltage. I'm trying to think. I'm really trying to think about how I want to phrase this. That's why I'm
It
kind
was
of
over the kit.
studying the battery voltage. I went ahead and did this stall test in flight.
Oh, the person was like looking at the back of his eyelids.
Yes. And that person just about jumped out of their skin. But it's with somebody that I was flying with that I know had a really good sense of humor. Otherwise, I would never do that. But it was, let me tell you what, that was hysterical.
Well,
the look.
There was a guy in the C-141. There was a bunk in the cockpit, a couple bunks in the back against the bulkhead, and we decided we'd play a prank, and everybody put their oxygen masks on, and there was somebody in the bunk that obviously didn't have their oxygen mask on, and we hit the horn, that really obnoxious sounding horn that comes off when the cabin altitude reaches a certain level, and so. And he wakes up and he looks at everybody, and they have their oxygen mask on. He's like tumbling out of the bunk trying to find an oxygen mask to put on. We all had a good laugh on that one. We went, we were just kidding. There's nothing going wrong here. Anyway, okay. Back to anything else we want to say about the skydiver / parachutist / fighter jets?
Crash test dummies.
Sadly.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
I was just saying it happens fairly regularly. So why this particular one got on the news, I don't know. But probably because of the social medias nowadays.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go.
Probably because that GoPro video is floating around out there.
Yeah,
probably so. Yeah, you're right. All right. Item C: 2 victims identified in plane crash near Toledo Express Airport. Yes, that is the name of the airport in Toledo, Ohio. A freight pilot who had nearly 50 years of flying experience was one of 2 men killed when their cargo aircraft crashed less than a mile from Toledo Express Airport. The nighttime incident, they really didn't need to say that, it's cargo, right? Which is still being investigated, happened early Wednesday and caused a fiery impact after the twin engine went down in the parking lot of a repair shop. I think about 0.6 miles from the end of the runway, so they're close. They must have been on an approach to Toledo Express when they crashed. It was a 62-year-old cargo aircraft. You think my airplane's old, huh? 62-year-old cargo aircraft, a twin-engine Convair 440, approaching about 2:37 a.m. when it crashed in the parking lot of Bubba's Diesel and Auto Repair. I love Bubba's. And let's see what else. They've just this company just purchased the airplane not long before this crash. I think in August of this year. And on the aviation safety website, they have a history of this airframe. It was delivered in January of 1957, before I was born. Thank you, to Scandinavian Air Services. Is that the actual formal name? SAS. Or something to that effect. And looks like SAS flew it for a good, I don't know, 12 years or so. And then Great Lakes Airlines flew it for a while, Emissary Airways, several different companies owned the airplane for quite some time. But the last change of ownership occurred on the 19th of August, 2019. And it says to private ownership. So I guess this cargo flight was being operated as a private flight. That's interesting. So maybe one of the guys, I think it was 72, another 69, something like that, which is not that old now that I'm 60 years old. And not sure exactly what happened there. There were no distress calls, and there is really no information in any of these news sources that I can see that kind of point to exactly what happened. I mean, they make note, I guess they were using some data from FlightAware or something, that the airspeed decreased from some value to another, but that wouldn't be unusual at all or uncommon coming in for an approach. You would be configuring and slowing down to approach speed. So what does it say? 194 miles per hour to 151 miles per hour within about a minute time frame. I would imagine a Convair 440, which I have not flown, the approach speed on it, I would imagine, is pretty slow, probably around 120 or something. I'm guessing. I don't know. Never flew the airplane. So that's sad that we lost a couple of aviators in that accident. Luckily, nobody on the ground was hurt. All right, moving on to E. This is an update on that. We covered this on a previous episode, the Citation 560 XLS Plus crash in Denmark, Aarhus, Denmark. And we couldn't figure out exactly why it crashed, and we didn't really have much information about it. But we said, as we always do, if we hear anything about what happened here, we'll definitely mention it in a future episode. So here we are, holding to our promise. A preliminary report shows that let's see, I'm going to go to the highlighted portion of this. Prior to reaching an altitude of 500 feet, the aircraft began to descend below the glide slope. So they got set up on a long final for runway 10 right, ILS, and about just approaching the altitude of 500 feet, the aircraft began to descend below the glide slope. When the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System, the EGPWS, began to sound, warning the crew of their descent below the glide slope, the first officer asked the captain whether to cancel the EGPWS warnings. The captain confirmed the descent was continued. So there was some ground fog, some shallow ground fog in the area at the time of this accident. They say that the captain got the airport runway in sight, or part of it, and I guess he was ducking down, maybe trying to hit the part of the runway where he could see it. I'm not sure. Reading between the lines here. Not entirely unusual for the EGPWS system. Part of the function of that system is to let you know if you're below the glide slope for any period of time. And if you're purposely doing that, and there are times, Dana, and I think that Captain Nick would agree as well, where everything's under control. Maybe you're slightly below the electronic glide path, but the stopway area and everything else is clear of obstacles and everything else. You want to get the airplane down a little bit lower than normal, what we call ducking under a bit, to get the airplane on the runway as soon as you can, or as close to the end of the runway as you can. So apparently that was what was happening here, and that's why the first officer asked, "Do you want me to, cancel these warnings?" And the captain said yes. the problem is approximately 450 meters before the beginning of runway 10 right, the aircraft collided with the antenna mast system, the localizer for runway 28 left, the opposite end, which ruptured the left wing tank. After rolling a landing roll of approximately 60 meters, the nose landing gear collided with the near field antenna of the localizer for runway 28 and collapsed. While rolling on the main wheels and skidding on the nose section, the aircraft entered the stopway for runway 28 left. Now, the stopway is the part of the runway before the actual technical runway itself. It's the area, if you were taking off in the opposite direction, where it's clear of major obstacles and the airplane can get into that area if necessary, if you're trying to stop it for like an abort or whatever. The aircraft came to a full stop approximately 230 meters, 755 feet after the beginning of runway 10 right. So they weren't even 1,000 feet down the runway they were attempting to land on when they stopped. That shows you right there that they landed a little bit short. Leaking fuel ignited, caught fire on the aft left-hand side of the fuselage. So that's a big whoopsie. Ducked under and probably didn't have adequate visual references to make a safe maneuver and ended up landing short, hitting antennas, and making it a bad day.
Well, you mentioned duck under. There are several airports out there that the glide slope is not, the electronic glide slope is not the same as the PAPI. And certainly when they are not coincident, I think is the word that they use, I will tend to come off, especially when I'm in a visual condition or can clearly see that the PAPI is giving me good guidance. It's going to give me usually a little closer in guidance to the end of the runway and give me more usable runway. So I'll a lot of times get on that.
And you'll probably say something to your crew member that, hey, I'm using the PAPI for my guidance.
Exactly. I'm on PAPI. I'm going to duck down here a little bit. As you mentioned, if there's a good clearing, if the airport perimeter is completely cleared and nothing is in the visual flight path in between me and the runway, sometimes I might go one dot below just so I can, especially on those short runways. One that comes directly to mind is Pensacola.
Yeah,
and it's only a 7,000 foot runway. It's a short runway, but it's got a very good clear area inside of the fence, as we would say,
right?
No obstruction. So it's not uncommon in that type of situation for us to go ahead and we always communicate. That's why we always do that.
And conversely, and a lot of times I'll almost be like ready. I'll have my hand up ready to push the glide slope light, and you push the light, and that cancels the EGPWS warning of the glide slope below the glide slope warning. But it's not something that we do commonly. It's just in certain situations, and you might think we'd be tempted to do that at an airport like LaGuardia, because those runways are 7,000 feet long as well. However, that's a situation, unlike Pensacola, where if you're coming in and landing on runway 4, you don't want to get too low there because there's a lot of stuff in there. It's not really a clear path for you to duck under there. The same thing coming in on the piers, landing on the piers. I don't know about you, Dana, but looking at those piers, you go, I don't want to get too close to those because you make an error in judgment. It's more than landing short. It's like shearing your landing gear off, and there have been airplanes that have done that in the past.
Well, in runway, especially 3-1, when you're doing that the expressway visual, you come around and down that end of the airport, the runway's below the berm.
Right.
Around the,
they have like a blast fence or something.
Well, it's blast fence, but the berm that keeps the harbor off the airport.
Yeah.
It's like a retaining wall, whatever it is. It's a good, 10 foot high at least. And that's actually there was the airplane that slid off in LaGuardia in the snowstorm. That's what saved them, because it had it hit that berm.
Yeah.
It kept it from going over into the harbor. But I was just looking at this, and this happened at nighttime. And one of the things that I'm far more conscientious of at nighttime, I'm not going to duck down at nighttime unless I have a really good PAPI, and I look at the chart and it says not coincident with the glide path. Other than that,
or
at nighttime, what?
Or coincident.
Oh, coincident. If the electronic glide slope is not, in line with the PAPI, then okay, I'll stay on PAPI and I'll keep it, too white, too red, so I'm right on,
Right.
or at least try to. But certainly at nighttime, I'm far more cautious and less willing to, quote unquote, duck down. So
I'm
I
not
think-
sure if this, I tried to find some information about these runways, and I was able to find this. I put a little image in the show notes here of the parallel runways at this airport. It's not a big major international airport. It's a smaller, mostly private, corporate kind of airport. And I don't know if they had any visual glide slope indications, either VASI or PAPI systems. It didn't mention it in the narrative of this, but I'm wondering, I bet you're right, Dana, they probably didn't have that, and they relied completely on their sense of their path, knowing that they were deviating from the electronic path at night. It's a very dangerous thing.
And
Yeah,
these
very
runways aren't
dangerous.
that short. Like they're not as short as LaGuardia or Pensacola.
That's why I'm wondering, Steph, if because it mentions earlier in the narrative that there was that low, shallow blanket of fog, and a lot of times in those cases there are like patches where you can see a lot of things, but then you can't. And I'm thinking he probably saw a patch that, I can land right there, which is not a very smart thing to do either. But yeah, no need to get it down so darn early unless you can't see any of the rest of the runway, I guess.
And they're landing on 10 right, which is 8,865 feet long.
No, I'm going to say that in my environment, we would never have done this. There's no such thing as ducking under. There's no such thing as landing short of the threshold when you've got a big airplane. Because
we don't land short. Just to be clear,
we never land short of the threshold.
This guy was going to land in the
I don't think
stopway.
So
yeah,
I don't think he intended to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I'm not quite sure what what ducking down does for you, other than shallow your approach angle. Then, because if you're planning to land beyond the threshold, what difference does it make?
Well,
go ahead, Dana.
I was going to say we shoot, especially on shorter runways, like again going back to Pensacola. I mean, I'll shoot for the 1,000-foot marker all day long, and that's actually below glide slope. And the reason why I'm doing that is, and even in other airports, that are similar, like DC, landing to the north, I do the same thing. I land, I look at that 1,000-foot marker, and I want to be touching down. In actuality, not this training cycle, Jeff, but I'm pretty sure in the last training cycle, they had us trying to do those spot landings between 1,000 to 1,500 feet down the runway because of that exact problem. So with our operation, Nick, yes, you're landing on, as a major international carrier, most of the runways you're landing on are probably 9,000 foot or greater. We're operating in 7,000 foot range. And our aircraft is not the best at stopping. I mean, especially the 88.
I think there's the difference. 7,000 feet would not be an unusual runway length for me. I've landed at Boston on the short runway there. How long is that?
It's right at around 7,000.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal. It's just really your stopping distance is the important factor. But this guy was ducking down. Well, this guy was coming below the glide slope at 500 feet. Now, if you're going to change your touchdown point from 1,500 feet, which would be normal for anyone, I think, to 1,000 feet, you're not going to start descending below at 500 feet, really, and you're not going to descend below that much, really.
Yeah, when we say duck under, Nick, we are not allowed to duck under unless we're like below minimums, like 200 feet between the touchdown, elevation and 200 feet above it. Yeah, we're allowed to, if the situation warrants, to duck under a little bit just to try to, get touchdown a little bit earlier than normal.
Absolutely. And certainly in my environment, if you get an EPGWS warning, you obey it, because you don't know necessarily why it's gone off unless you've got warnings on your approach plates to indicate that you might get false warnings. And even then, I'd be very cautious about continuing.
in your environment, or your previous environment, and big international airports, I mean, I can't
Yeah.
imagine any situation where that would
No.
be warranted.
Therein lies the difference. So we're flying to airports that have got really good equipment and they're well surveyed.
And and it's not something that we do like every trip. This is not a common thing at all. Dana would agree with me that there are just certain places and certain conditions, if they're appropriate, then you are given the ability to duck under a little bit, but not land in the stopway. We're not allowed to do that. The chat room, we have some experts in the chat room, and we have Pip. And just kidding. Pip's an expert. He says that 10 right has high intensity approach lights and PAPI. So it does have a precision approach path indicator, which is a visual guidance lighting system that we use to determine whether or not we're on an appropriate glide path. So,
And it may or may not have been on.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know.
And also he mentions the glide slope's at 2.75 already. So it's a pretty shallow approach to start with.
Yeah.
So you're really cutting your margins down to nothing if you're going to go below that. So,
right. Yeah, obviously, in hindsight, it was not a good idea.
Definitely.
No, it didn't end well, did it?
I think we're speculating at least a little bit as to why they did that.
That's true.
We know that they did, but we don't know exactly the why.
Yeah, we are definitely speculating, which is what we do here on the APG.
Yeah.
Well, and the best part about this conversation is the people that are listening to the show are hearing our different inputs into how to fly the aircraft. And the end of the day is that we as professionals generally err on the side of safety anyways. That's what we get paid for. So it's a learning point that when somebody's out there flying around their Cessna 152 or 72 or their RJ or getting to the mainline airlines, that that's how we think and how we keep it extra safe.
Exactly. Safety is paramount. I had to look up that word, paramount.
Captain Al makes an interesting remark. I think he used to go there regularly in the 330 CFU. Is that the same place? I think it is. Oh, no, it's not. But he said it was 2,300 meters. Someone will tell me how many feet that is, so I can work it out.
7,000 feet.
Yeah, around that much.
But his comment is I think is quite valid. He says most of this revolves around perceived benefits versus the real risk.
True. Yeah, that is true. At the time, it seems like the benefit is greater than it probably really is for the risk that you're encountering. And as we know, a lot of times you'll do something and you get away with it. It worked out just fine. But then there are times when it works the other way. So,
and Neil brings up an interesting comment about the Asiana 777. When sheared off the tail doing that.
I don't know that they were trying to duck under in that case.
They were not attempting to duck.
That was not a
No, I don't think
deliberate attempt.
That was a completely different thing. That was completely loss of situational awareness of your speed and energy of the airplane. That was
correct.
Oh, I don't want to think about that one. Okay. Battery fires. We're always worried about fire on an airplane, and there was an incident recently. Do you see the photo that I included at the top there? A little bit of charred,
scorched.
Yeah, scorched. There, that's a better word. It was a China Eastern Airlines Airbus 320. They had to return to land at this Nanjing Lukao International Airport. Looks like one of the passengers had a battery pack that suffered a thermal runaway. And luckily, they got the airplane back on the ground. They got the runaway controlled, doused, or whatever they did to it. But I see this and I go, ooh, that's like my worst nightmare. Like one of these things lighting up and
No, it's interesting. So on the aircraft that you fly, do you have in-seat power for?
Yep.
So people can charge their devices.
Not all I don't think in the economy section.
But at least some of the seats have.
Yeah, but
power available to
Plus and first class.
Yeah.
And so my comment I'm going to make on this is, I just traveled with a lot of electronical equipment for scuba diving. I have my dive computer. I have my camera, my underwater flashlights, my underwater strobe. And this came to my mind. I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, normally in the past, I would have actually put this in my checked baggage. This time I did not. I brought it all with me on the airplane. Of course, then I have my portable battery, my external battery, and then my iPhone. So I started thinking about that. That's quite a bit of battery power in my hands.
And that's just you.
And that's just me.
Just one person.
All the people in the back of the airplane, how much are they carrying?
Right.
Well, and I found it interesting. So I've taken a few flights this week.
Steph, you never fly anywhere. What are you talking about?
I never go anywhere. But this was the first time I heard the cabin crew announce our flight from London to Edinburgh and back both ways. This was with Flybe. They asked that no one charge any devices, and there were several announcements made about, if your device becomes overly warm or you're concerned about it at all, to notify flight attendants immediately.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem are cheap, unregulated power packs that don't shut themselves down when they have temperature increases and can get into this runaway situation. I think if you spend the money and buy a well-designed pack from a legitimate manufacturer or well-known manufacturer, trusted manufacturer, you're going to be all right. But a lot of people buy these sort of things off eBay. They're manufactured cheaply from the Far East, and they don't. One of the reasons they're cheap is because they don't spend the money to fit all the safeguards.
Right.
Yeah.
So interesting. Like my phone is just always in a charging case. So technically, my phone was still charging unless I turned everything off and removed it out of the case.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Anyway,
I'm going to tell them.
I know that was bad on my part.
Busted.
Sorry.
And you that's a great point, because not too long ago I did buy an external battery because I carry so much with me, and I was online on Amazon and looking at the local companies, the local stores you can buy this stuff, and there were a lot of off-brand type of chargers. I actually opted to spend a little more money and buy the exact same charger that we use as our backup battery at the company. Mm-hmm. And my reasoning behind that was, and it's a small one. It's like 1/4 the size of the one that we actually carry around for our normal operation. But I figured, okay, if it's good enough for us to carry in the cockpit, and they've probably vetted it, is my guess, probably vetted the battery and the ability for it to handle the regular use that we put it through, then the little one's got to be a little safer. So that's actually the reason why I bought the one I bought.
I actually had one of those from that company, Anker, Anker, before the.
You missed out the W.
No, I had to think about that one.
I know, I did too. I think we all got it at the same time. We were like, where does the W go? Oh,
I figured it out pretty quick.
So if you buy it from Wanker, it's not the top quality one.
Yeah, that's the knockoff.
You said, well, it could be from the Far East. Well, they're all from the Far East as far as I know. But there are some companies that are higher quality and they go through testing and they have the circuitry, as Nick mentioned, that will sense a thermal runaway and it shut itself down. So, you have to be careful about, but people are people. They want to save some bucks. Wait, this one looks just like this one and it's like half the cost or less than half.
Well, I don't mind them saving bucks as long as they don't bring it on the airplane.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that's exactly the thing. Whenever you go out and have a conversation first and they figure out that you work for an airline, what's the first comment out of their mouth?
What route
can you get me a cheap flight?
Would you fly, or can you get me a cheap flight? Right. So you think about that same thing when they're getting on the airplane. Do you think anybody really spends any time thinking about what type of external battery pack they're bringing on the aircraft or all their other batteries? No. They certainly don't. So just think of, I had 6 batteries with me.
Yeah. Well, think about this also. It's not just a risk on airliners. It's also a risk on boats. They think that that horrible tragedy of the dive boat off the California San Bernardino coast, in the island, Santa Cruz Island, was caused by charging devices, electronic devices, while they were all sleeping. I think that's
yeah.
what may have
Yeah.
caused that horrible fire that killed 34 people.
That would explain why it spread so incredibly quickly.
Yes. So, of course, that thing is still being investigated by the NTSB, but that's some of the stuff that I've heard in certain reports.
So what are we going to do if they ban battery packs on airplanes? Or
Well, you just can't. No.
Well, let's hope we all just live long enough for them to develop a new type of battery.
Yeah, a safe battery.
Yeah.
Finally, item G, instructor and student pilot survived plane crash at Arizona airport. They were injured, not killed.
Amazing. How the hell did they survive
I don't know. There's a
This is
picture that we're all looking
ridiculous.
at and shaking our heads. There's an
Yeah.
airplane that basically looks like it came straight down, nose first, and made it about halfway through this building. I guess it's a hangar or something. Looks like a hangar.
I don't
It's a
even
big,
know.
very
It's
tall
a-
building.
That doesn't look like a hangar at all.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
It's
No.
like a warehouse or something.
Warehouse or maybe somebody's, I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Storage.
anyway, it was a single-engine Aircoup 415-C that crashed into the airport's I think it looks like an airport operations building.
There you go.
Shortly
See,
after
That's exactly what it is.
And
So this was an air coupe.
yes.
Mhm.
I want to fly one of those. If those blokes can do that to it and survive, that's the airplane
No.
for me.
They're fairly, yeah.
Very sturdy airplane.
It's better known as a flying air tank.
Yeah, really. They said that they didn't in this article. They say that they don't know what the severity of their injuries are. I would imagine they're probably pretty serious.
Yeah.
Well,
I can
yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as
well,
serious as that
survive.
building is, because that airplane's in pretty good shape compared to the building.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is to paint the picture for our audio listeners. Like literally, you're looking at the side of the building, and the aircraft has come halfway through it, nose down, and like just stuck in the side of the building with one wing
Yeah.
Hanging
It's
out.
penetrated about 10, 12 feet of that
at
building.
least. Yeah.
It still looks like an airplane, kind
Oh, it
of.
does. Yeah, it's retained
Oh, it
its shape. I
definitely
mean,
looks
it's
like an
definitely
airplane.
Yeah.
it's definitely
You can
crumpled up a little, but it's.
you
maintained.
can clearly see
fly
that you can see the main body of the aircraft, and it doesn't look like it's been.
No.
Too
I think
terribly
that
damaged.
propeller will be usable as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a little bent on the one side.
Just rebend it. It'll be a fun.
Yeah, just hammer that. It'll buff out.
Bend the other side to match.
Okay. That is not serious advice from
No.
me, just to be sure
No.
people understand. All righty.
Well, if you're listening to this, please go look at the pictures because it's
Yeah.
It's
that'll be
impressive.
in the show notes for you to peruse. And with that, that's the end of our news segment. And now it's time for one of the best parts of the show, which is your feedback. If I can just find the right button to push.
You push my buttons all the time, Jeff.
Yes, I do.
Captain, incoming message.
Little break?
Yes.
Okay.
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 Stretch my legs.
Yeah. I think it's just these chairs, Nick.
Yeah, I know. They're not brilliant.
So we're sitting here too.
He needs to get a better, more ergonomic.
More ergonomic setup here. Yeah. You said these chairs
Well,
are
we
the
I'm
can
same.
liking this standing up thing.
Yeah,
like
well,
Yeah.
why don't we do
Hold
the
on.
bit of standing
IKEA
up?
desk that I have.
Did you get a movable desk too?
It's a
Well, here's the problem. Nick is a lot taller than me.
Yeah,
so if we
that is
stand
going to
up,
be a problem.
yeah, that's true. This
I'll
is
have to slouch, you see.
You're standing up
be
on your
down
tippy
here.
toe.
what do they call this IKEA desk? A star
Should I get you a box to stand on?
Yeah, I might need one.
Anyway,
Just get the-
well, I'll be right back. I'm gonna stretch my leg.
You're going to Dylan. No, I'm not going to say it. We're still in there.
Are we all disappearing for a moment?
Okay, I could get a beer.
Okay.
And just shake hands with the wife's best friend.
So how's the chat room doing? Guess I'm here by myself for a minute. Although when Nick returns, I'm going to take a small break myself. There's a really long delay on the chat room tonight, too. Don't know why. This is ridiculous. Super tall. Okay. I look very short in the picture now, and I promise I'm not that short. Well, still no news from you all. So I'll just sit here and check Facebook. Oh, hi, Deanna. How are you? Delta P, yes, I'm pretty sure that's what's happening with the gentleman of the crew at the moment. I did enjoy Edinburgh. It was very lovely. We had some pretty good weather. And the castle there is just incredible. Oh, good. Jeff's back to entertain y'all, so I can go.
What's that?
Take my break. I said you're back to entertain everyone.
I just want to say, that Bio Bidet is a wonderful product.
Are you doing official?
No, I didn't use it too quickly.
Right.
Yeah, but I gazed upon it.
Send me the link for that.
Okay. Oh man.
I think you did once before, but I don't think I have it.
Cannot more highly recommend.
Does this setup just makes me look really short, doesn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, the way you have way more headroom. Both of you actually. You
really
can tilt it down a little bit.
Well, I'll figure that out when he comes back. All right, I'm gonna go use the restroom.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that was kind of overly kind of me, wasn't it, Liz? Just kidding.
What am I missing?
Nothing.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. No. Dun, dun, dun. Gentlemen. Delta P. Oh yeah. Let's see that. That deserves a sound effect. So let me see if I can find it. I think it's this one.
I'm just going to get a stool for Steph to sing.
Oh yeah! Delta P!
Hillel assures me that the sound that you're hearing is water being poured into toilet bowl or toilet. Yeah, toilet bowl. Yeah. So we'll just have to take his word for it. We could talk about Nick because he can't hear us. Look at that good-looking guy. Yep, he's back. Can't talk about him anymore.
No, you can't. I seem to have suddenly changed in brightness.
Yeah, it looks like the exposure needs to be adjusted.
Now, what was I using? I was using the
Maybe
built-in
webcam
one.
settings. We're using
webcam settings.
Yeah. Now you got to go and adjust the zoom.
Oh, gold. Exposure brightness. Let's go advanced.
Steph and I were talking about the fact that it looked like you guys had a lot more headroom than you needed to have.
Yeah.
On the shot. I thought you were doing it to kind of get the background, but that's
watch
still
this.
What?
too tall.
Is that a bit much for you, Steph?
Just a little.
Oh yeah! Delta P!
See, Hillel has returned from his travels.
He's back from China.
Good
and
to have
in
you back,
my
Hillel.
bathroom.
It's not weird at all.
No. Let's don't talk about it.
Right, let's take a look at that. Brightness, contrast, that's fine. White balance.
I know it's not as fun as eyeglasses, but I think it's, for me, it's more useful.
What's that?
The webcam settings little app. It's cheap,
There you
$5
go.
or something. Oh, much better. Colors are better.
Good.
Good.
There's a lot of light in here. I'll say that much. It's much brighter than my studio at home. It's good though.
We like to keep things professional.
Bright light, bright light.
What's the audio like, by the way, Jeff? Is it okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to
sounds
trip
great.
over this stool now.
Sounds very good. You're using your Sennheiser.
Yeah, just so that we'd both have the same mic and it would be
Yeah.
nicely balanced.
Wow, you got two of them, huh? Very nice.
Yeah.
Nick's got
Retirement
all
has
the
been good
equipment.
for you.
Yeah. All the
Have
gear,
you-
no idea.
Have you gotten your new car yet?
Well, no, it's got to be made first.
Ah,
Been ordered though.
it was specially made for Nick Anderson.
Exactly right. Yep.
Very nice.
Someone said I should go down to the factory and pick it up. That
Yeah.
sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And then
could be
drive it
bothered.
across the channel.
Yeah, I don't think it's
God.
I don't think it goes over the water. I think
Oh.
you'd have to-
You can't
okay.
drive it in the
No,
channel.
In the channel?
Oh, you could. Yeah, I guess you could.
Well,
You're
no,
on
the
a
tunnel's
train.
just
Though.
a train, though, right? So
Yeah,
would you have to do a
exactly.
ferry, I guess, to
Yeah.
bring it across?
Yeah, you could do a ferry, or you can drive it
can.
on the train.
Yeah.
It has carriages that carry the cars.
There you go.
Steph, you look tiny.
I know. I don't know if I like this arrangement here. I'm
are
not
you standing?
I'm standing.
Okay. Yeah.
Nick is very tall.
So that reminds me
I'm
of
not that short.
my first encounter of Nick in the
Yes,
bar.
I
at
remember.
the,
You look at his chest.
Yeah.
Well, he kind of did this like slow.
Yeah. I mean, I turned around. So he taps me on the shoulder and hands me this IPA, and all I see is this IPA and somebody's chest area. And it wasn't that impressive. And then I looked and I went, thank you. And I kind of just started looking up and up and up. And I went, oh. And then he started talking. And I think, you sound like Captain Nick.
But much bigger.
Yes.
But much taller.
Much taller than
I think you actually said, I didn't think you'd be so, or I didn't know you were so tall.
probably did. Yeah. I don't. Do we? Somebody said
I have
there's
that video.
Oh, okay.
I have the
I'd love
video.
to see that.
I took the video. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I'll have to repost that to the Soch Meads.
Oh, man. Okay. Are we ready to proceed with the show?
Yes.
We're about an hour and a half in, I think, Liz?
Almost 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, we
So
didn't do
good.
very good with time management tonight.
Well, we had a lot of stuff to talk about at the
That's
beginning.
true.
No, we didn't.
Most people enjoy that part of the show. Not everyone.
We know some people don't.
There are some people. All right.
If it's you, just hit that fast forward button.
Yeah. Oh, also,
For the
if you do
timestamp.
not enjoy our silly comments, then this is not the show for you. All right. Let's start with the first item in our feedback folder from Dave. And he sent us some audio feedback. Shall we listen to it?
Let's do.
Why not?
All right.
Nick doesn't want to. Do we have to have a unanimous vote?
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's okay. It's Dave from the UK. It's my second feedback. So I'd just like to, first of all, say thank you to Steph for answering my questions on the migraine issue. Unfortunately, I've had a couple of migraines recently, so the flight training is still on hold. The reason for this feedback and the question I have is all around the amazing photographs that we've seen coming out of the aircraft that's used to investigate hurricanes and to fly into the eye of the storm to take photographs and data, etc. I can't believe, or I can't imagine, I should say, what's going through people's minds who want to do that. It looks pretty hairy to me. It's not something that I'd fancy. I'm just wondering if you guys have ever had the chance to do that. Would you like to do it? But also, what special skills will the pilot need to do that? And also, what sort of plane is used? I noticed it's a prop plane. I don't know exactly what type of aircraft it is, but I presume it must be pretty sturdy. Any information you can give me on this, I'd appreciate. I say I'm fascinated by the pictures and fascinated by the whole thing. I don't know if there's any plain tales that can be done around this, but it's a very interesting subject, in my opinion. Anyway, thanks very much. Keep up the good work, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Well, I must say, I hope not. Plain tales thing. Just kidding. Yeah, they are prop planes. No special skills required other than great flying skills that we all have. But the airplanes themselves, they use a couple of different airplanes here in the U.S. anyway. I don't do other countries. They must have hurricane hunters in other countries. Right?
Well, it's not really an issue in most other countries. It's just here in the U.S., Mexico,
and typhoons out there in Asia.
And well, that's what I was going to go with Asia. And you get typhoons,
right?
Which are the same weather phenomenon.
It's called a different thing.
Yeah.
Australia as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So
but I don't know if other like government weather organizations.
Yeah, I wish I'd thought of
have,
that question before I just asked it live online or while we're doing the show. But if you know out there, dear listeners, send us some information about it. But I did look up some hurricane hunters on the Wikipedia, and the ones that I'm most familiar with are the ones that the U.S. military uses. And believe it or not, it's a reserve unit that is exclusively tasked with the hurricane hunter missions in the U.S. And they use the venerable Hercules, the C-130. I think it's a J model, which is the latest model. They've used all kinds of models in the past. And
Hercules.
Yes.
And they
And the P3?
use Orions as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say the National Oceanic, what's the other part? Atmospheric Administration uses the WP-3D Orion, the P3, a very rugged airplane as well, and also made by Lockheed. Interesting. Lockheed makes some pretty beefy airplanes, I'd say.
Yeah.
So the photos that you're seeing are probably from either one of those, the NOAA's WP3 or the Hurricane Hunter, the reserve unit based in at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi on the Gulf Coast of the United States. The C-130.
Now, somebody did an interview with some of these pilots on a podcast. I'm desperately trying to remember which podcast it was. Can you remember, Jeff?
No.
Okay. It was kind of an echo interview one, but I'll try and remember. And
Okay.
if I can find it, I'll let you know so you can put it in the show notes. But it was brilliant.
Was it Flying in Life or was it?
No, I have a feeling it might
was
have been Opposing Bases.
Opposing Bases?
Yeah, I'll check up and find out. But it was very, very, very interesting about this pilot who does this for a day-to-day job.
Yes.
Good stuff.
My main man Micah makes the point that they also have a Gulfstream 4. That's a highly modified Gulfstream 4 that NOAA has, high altitude above 41,000 feet, to document upper and lower level winds that affect cyclone movement. I think, I kind of recall somebody doing some kind of an interview of the hurricane hunters as well. And I've seen some videos, some television programming or video programming that did a nice job of riding along with the hurricane hunters and all the capabilities of these airplanes.
Micah says it was on the Airplane Geeks. So,
okay. There you go. Airplane Geeks. I never heard of that.
Ah, that's right.
Podcast? Is that a podcast? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one.
Probably
Never
one
heard
of
of
the better aviation podcasts out there. Go listen to them.
It's one of the also rans, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's one of the best. It's still the best.
No, that's right. I remember the interview was done at Oshkosh. I just couldn't remember which of the many podcasters that were there actually did the interview, but it was Airplane Geeks. Their on-location correspondent, Robert.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking of is something, it was like a video one. It was not done by the Airplane Geeks, which I'm sure wasn't as good as the Airplane Geeks.
There was another one.
Yeah, but it kind of documents the whole mission and what's required to get into the unit and the training that they have. They do all their training for the pilots at the base, Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, because it's such a limited mission.
There you go. Armando. It was Armando on PT UK.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
So multiple other podcasts have actually interviewed these folks.
Yeah, except us.
Well, we didn't.
One must not lose the fact that with hurricane hunters, they're flying 8 to 10 hour missions, and I don't know about the Herc. I'm pretty sure the P3. I'm pretty sure both of them. Neither one of them have an autopilot. So this is all hand flown. Of course, the G4 has an autopilot, but
well, I think that the J model, the latest model of the C-130s they're using, I'm sure have an autopilot. They have a pretty.
I wouldn't imagine they're using the autopilot flying through the hurricane.
Well, I don't think so. No,
yeah.
I'm saying they have one. I don't think they'd be using it when they're actually flying through the wall of the hurricane.
Yeah, so
I would want to.
You're basically flying through thunderstorms, so it's quite
Yeah.
I've seen video on it. It's actually quite violent. So,
So I'm thinking, would I ever want to do something like this?
No.
Heck no. It's cray cray. I hear that more, do we?
I'd love to do it. Sounds
yeah.
great.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
you're an adventure.
They use Doppler radar to pick the good points of entry and avoid the big wind shears. And once you're in the middle bit, it's like sailing around in a duck pond.
Well, okay. Very good descriptive there.
No, I'm with Dana. I've seen those video. It does look pretty.
Yeah, I think it's very hair raising at times.
I have a link to an article from Popular Mechanics magazine, March of 1950. It was only 35 cents for this magazine back in 1950. And the article is about fly into the heart of a typhoon. And that they were using a B-29 at the time, I believe. And I believe, is this the story where they actually lost the airplane and aircrew? No, I guess they made it back, but it's a pretty interesting story. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Pretty interesting. They've been doing this for a while with many, many different airplanes over its history of its mission. Anything else?
No.
All right.
Nope.
Thanks for the question, Dave. Very timely because we just had Dorian run through pretty close to the U.S. Didn't make landfall, or did it technically make?
It did in
Hatteras.
Hatteras is where it made landfall, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
As
extreme-
category 2, category
I think it
1,
was.
2, I think. Yeah,
It's true.
it's 2. Category 2.
It's 2. Okay. Let's move on with the second item. Chuck he asks Jeff and company, just listening to your story about the aircraft evacuation in Hawaii. That was the A321, I believe, that they had a evacuation because of smoke in the cabin. Was wondering, have you or Nick or Dana ever done an emergency evacuation on one of your flights? Thanks for a wonderful podcast series. And this is
super wonderful podcast series.
Super. Oh, I missed the super part. Come in.
I'm knocking on wood because I'm hoping never to have to do that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought it was housekeeping.
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 Yeah, no, I have not. So Dana, his answer is 1 in the no column. And let me go next. 2 now in the no column. And Nick, what column do you put your
Make
mark?
3 in the no
3
column.
in the no column.
Well, I did evacuate myself from a Phantom that was on fire as we taxied in, but that doesn't really count, does it?
I think that's an emergency evacuation of an aircraft.
Yeah, but not.
It's not really what Chuck was asking about.
No.
Not evacuating.
And in my rush to get out of the aircraft, I forgot to disconnect one lanyard, which was attached to my dinghy. So as I got like 10 feet from the airplane, I fell flat in my face with this cord dragged tight and stopped me dead in my tracks, and also set off my emergency locator beacon. So while I was flat on my face, everyone knew where I was.
Yeah, but I bet nobody had video of it.
No, they thank the Lord for that.
Before the days of cell
Exactly
phone
right.
video, where everyone's like, "Oh, look at this guy."
And the lovely thing was the junior engineering officer, who could see it was a jet pipe fire, clambered straight up into the cockpit that I've run away from and fired up the engine and blew out the fire.
Oh.
Which made me feel a bit inadequate. Yeah, we used to taxi in with one engine shut down.
Yeah.
And it was the shutdown engine that had developed a jet pipe fire as we taxied in. All I was told was, "Nick, you're on fire." So I went, "Oh, bloody hell." And emergency evacuation, off we went. And the engineer, of course, could see it was a jet pipe fire. So he just started up that engine and it blows that out.
Ah, that must be the same thing. We call it a tailpipe fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the funny thing, people want to, if you get a tailpipe fire in a modern airliner, you're thinking, okay, we'll pull the fire handle and
no.
Nope.
Engine fire on start in a piston aircraft, continue cranking until
there you go.
Yeah.
Same thing. Just keep the air running.
Cranking with the W.
So learning point here, folks, ladies and gentlemen. Learning point is that if they are giving you a fire signal outside and you have no fire signal in the cockpit, keep on motoring the engine.
Yes. It's a tailpipe.
And the fire signal is
Ah!
Yeah.
You're
Run
on
away,
fire.
run away.
Run. I don't know.
It's a figure of 8
Yeah,
horizontally.
it's like being a conductor.
What's this guy doing? He must
Or
be.
you see people running away from the airplane. Probably a good idea. They're all bolting.
Okay, moving on to 3. I think we can do this before we do our plain tale. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay, dear captains, Jeff, Nick, Dana, and Dr. Steph. Longtime listener, first-time caller. I'm writing about 2 resources. If you listen to talk radio, that's a first-time or long-time listener, first-time caller, is what a lot of people say. Anyway, I'm writing about 2 resources that West Coast of the United States listeners might enjoy. And he says, first, about myself. I'm transitioning from military to commercial flying and have absolutely loved every episode of your podcast since I found it around episode 290. Oh, thank goodness he's not listening to any of the earlier ones.
Say he's a liar.
And let's see, where was I? I had to make it a little bit bigger so I could read it. I have not gone back and listened to the earlier episodes. Kids don't leave a lot of time for that. Yeah, we understand. Although I did check out episode 90 with First Officer Tony. He looks a lot like Dana. I flew the CH-46E twin rotor helicopter and MV-22B Osprey tilt rotor for the Marine Corps. I'm sure Captain Dana would enjoy a ride in either of those aircraft.
Yes, I would.
I guess I wouldn't. I'm currently flying for a West Coast regional carrier who until recently flew routes for Acme, but the company has not renewed to continue flying routes for Acme and is, quote, still searching for its true north. I also recently moved to Huntington Beach and live just outside the initial approach fix for the ILS into Long Beach. So we have a great location for plane spotting from our yard. And just by the way, Huntington Beach, Long Beach is very close to where I grew up in Los Alamitos. I caught the snippet from episode 388 that Captain Jeff grew up in Lakewood, just north of Long Beach. My wife grew up in Lakewood and was an altar girl at her Catholic church, St. Cyprian. Possibly one of the first. Maybe he means
one of the first altar girls. Yeah.
Her father, because I don't think it was the first church in Lakewood. Anyway, boom. That was my attempt at humor. Her father also went to Lakewood High School, although he graduated in 1971, so he would have been a few years ahead of Captain Jeff. I know you probably didn't overlap with any of these, but I found it's rare to hear of anyone actually from Lakewood, California, as it is not a very large city tucked in among all the other cities in Los Angeles and Orange counties. My wife usually just claims Long Beach when she is telling people where she's from. And just a side note here, I did contact him and say, yeah, until I was about 3 or 4, I lived in Lakewood, but then we moved to Rossmore / Los Alamitos. And anyway, had a nice private conversation with Bruce. And usually when I tell people, they say, oh, Southern California, where? And then I say, are you familiar with Southern California? And I usually start with like Long Beach, Seal Beach, Huntington Beach. And then if they say, oh yeah, we know all those areas. And I say, okay, Los Alamitos to be exact. Anyway, moving on. As far as the resources I mentioned, here they are. Vandenberg missile launches. You mentioned a story in episode 388 about testing delivery of mail with a missile, or missile for those of you in the UK. While mail is not being delivered by missile, they are still launching missiles out of Vandenberg Air Force Base on the West Coast. There's a mailing list that you can sign up for to be alerted when missiles are going to launch. This is helpful for anyone flying to know there might be something out there. These launches are visible from much of the Southern California area, especially close to the shoreline. I've been able to see several SpaceX rockets. Ooh, that must be cool to watch. And he gave us a link to the mail list. I guess you can sign up for these launch alerts. And then this is my favorite, the hangar in Douglas Park. Another fascinating piece of history in this area is the Douglas Park area on the north side of the Long Beach Airport. This is where Douglas, and then McDonnell Douglas, and then finally Boeing manufactured many famous aircraft. See the attached plaque for the types and quantities of airframes they built here. You will note the MD-80 MD-90 and B-717 airframes, which would be of interest to Captains Jeff and Dana. They have a food court called the Hangar, which is built to look like an old hangar. There is also a runway leading up to the building. Your listeners might want to check out this great aviation-themed establishment and enjoy many types of food. I especially enjoyed the wide selection of IPAs available. We found lots of inside and outside seating and a play area for the kids. And when I wrote Bruce back, I said, sounds like a great place for a meetup if I ever get back out there to that area of the country. And it gives us a Google Maps URL to find the hangar at the Long Beach Municipal Airport. He says, I know treks to the West Coast are rare for any of you, but I will keep an eye out for any meetups if possible. In the meantime, keep the blue side up and the IPAs flowing, Bruce. And then he has some pictures here. He mentioned the plaques. And you know what I thought was interesting, Dana? I didn't realize a lot of great airplanes, by the way, starting with the in 1941, the C-47 Skytrain, B-17 Flying Fortress, A-26 Invader, the amazing number of very prominent airplanes in U.S. aviation history. But the DC-9's listed, and they have the number of DC-9s that were actually produced, and that number is 956. And then I moved down to the MD-80 line. It says 1,191. I didn't realize that they made more Mad Dogs than they did the DC-9.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because if you think of all the Mad Dogs out there that we know of, not too many airline operators, especially here in the States, use them.
Right.
Primarily American in Delta
Acme.
use those. Acme, well,
and Delta too, yeah.
Yeah, Delta too, yeah. Acme and Delta. So, and then of course, Allegiant had a very modest fleet of them.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond
like
that,
MD-83s, I think, right?
yeah, well, yeah, you can include them
ones.
all. I mean, I know American had almost 400 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the MD-80 on this plaque, I think, covers all
of the series. Yeah.
So,
I was just trying to think.
And then you think about Acme / and also Delta, 120, 130, somewhere around there. But that's all the major operators I can think of for that airplane. I'm sorry, TWA. So
but so many other airlines that we know of flew the DC-9. That's why I was kind of surprised, as you probably are as well.
Yeah, that's.
Anyway,
what's irritating me is seeing that B-717 because it has nothing to do with Boeing. As a McDonnell Douglas product known as an MD-95.
Well, I'll have you know that as Jeff was reading through this and he went through the part that said first Douglas, then McDonnell Douglas, and then Boeing, there was an audible, I don't know what the right word for the vocalization that Nick made.
For that,
it was a
actually,
scuff.
I did hear it
a
on my end. You must have
a-
been muted or something.
Yeah, we were muted. It was Douglas, McDonnell Douglas, and Boeing. Basically.
Yeah. I don't think that Boeing actually
Small.
technically, well, maybe they were in charge for some of the last C-17s that were produced, I guess, perhaps.
C-17s?
C-17s, yes. Did I say B-17?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Slightly different.
I don't think, yeah, never mind.
Maybe I just didn't hear you properly.
No, I probably said B-17, not C-17.
B-17 is a little outdated.
Yeah, but they did make them there at Long Beach.
The B-17?
I think so. Wasn't that one of the things on the plaque?
That's a Boeing product.
Yeah, 2017, first flight, 1942. They produced 3,000
on this site.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I always kind of joke around that I was born in Long Beach, and so was the airplane that I fly. So it was almost like kismet. That flying that jet.
It was meant to happen.
Meant to be, apparently. Anyway,
and Bruce, we're very intrigued by the hangar and their IPAs. We have
Yes.
some concern though about their runway designation. We're not sure what
68
on the compass.
Huh. I didn't even notice that, but yeah, that is a little odd. And you wouldn't want to duck under on this runway.
No, that would be.
Well, and you want to stop before the next set of all odds.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, you need to look at the show notes, and we'll put those photos in there so you can look and enjoy them as well. Thanks, Bruce.
Well, I was going to say it's amazing that the amount of military aircraft versus civilian is It's only what, 6, 7. I'm sorry. Truly 4, 5 truly only commercial aircraft, and then 2 commercial / militaries, which would be the DC-9, C-9, and the KC-10 / DC-10. But most of the other aircraft ever produced here, military. So,
yeah,
interesting.
Very interesting. Well, thanks again, Bruce, for that. And hopefully one of these days we'll head back out there and we'll do some kind of a meetup. Sounds like the hangar is a place to go. All right. With that, looks like it's now time for this week's installment of the Old Pilot's Plane Tales. And this one, folks, is one that you'll remember for a long time. It's very nice.
The Old Pilot's Plane Tales. Still waiting for help. Still praying. The north of Africa holds the world's largest hot desert, known as the Greatest Desert, or more commonly by the Arabic word Sahara. It is bounded to the east by the Red Sea, to the north by the Mediterranean, and the west by the Atlantic. To the south, its vast expanse, some 3.6 million square miles, is halted by the Sahel, a belt of semi-arid tropical savanna around the Niger River Valley and the sub-Saharan Sudan. It is a vast area, covered mainly by expanses of rocky hamada, stone plateaus, and less so by ergs, sand seas, and gravel plains. But within these areas are huge sand dunes, some of which are over 600 feet, 180 meters high. Much of the Sahara is flat, with wadi, dry valleys, dry lakes and salt flats, but it also boasts vast mountain ranges, many volcanic in nature. The one thing that is common to all of the Sahara is the heat. A wide portion suffers from over 4,000 hours of scorching sunlight a year, and some areas see direct sunlight for 98% of daylight hours, giving average air temperatures which exceed 40 degrees centigrade, 104 Fahrenheit, and ground temperatures of over 80 degrees centigrade, that's over 180 degrees Fahrenheit. There are big diurnal temperature changes, but it's a myth that the nights are freezing cold, unless it's a rare event and you happen to be amongst the high mountains. Rainfall is rare, and in the central and eastern parts, practically non-existent. As a consequence, plant life is scarce. There is some animal life, mainly lizards, vipers, and insects, which include the large deathstalker scorpion. Its venom contains large amounts of neurotoxin. All in all, it's a pretty inhospitable place, as some have found to their misfortune. It was the 4th of April, 1943, and the crew of Lady Be Good picked themselves up from their parachute drop. It was pitch black, not a light visible anywhere, except for the stars above, which filled the sky with a stunning display so intense it could only be seen like that from a few remote places in the world. As they shouted to find each other in the dark, the sound of their aircraft droning on, flying away from them, slowly faded until it was as quiet as the grave. Eventually, they resorted to firing their weapons and sending signal flares up into the inky blackness to help the crew come together. A few were close enough to find each other easily, and eventually the stragglers came in, but a head count only revealed 8. They were missing one, John Voraka, the bombardier. They were all surprised to find themselves standing on land. They had thought they had been out over the Mediterranean Sea. It had been their first operational mission, and it hadn't gone well. Lady Be Good was a B-24 Liberator of the U.S. Army Air Corps. She wasn't an appealing lady, as she handled like a long tractor trailer with 18 flat tires, and she was considered the ugly sister of the heavy American bombers in the Second World War. However, the Liberator was still a rugged aircraft, and destined to become the most produced American bomber in history. More than 18,000 were built during the war, mainly by the Ford Motor Company. She had her faults, a tendency to catch fire if ditching or crash landing, because the high-mounted Davis wing had a habit of breaking away from the fuselage. She was hard to fly in formation, and her pilots needed big biceps to wrestle the clumsy controls. But the ugly lady had some good redeeming features: a high top speed, good combat range, a decent ceiling, and she carried a good bomb load. When they got airborne that night, the crew of Lady Be Good would have undoubtedly been feeling a bit nervous. They were going into combat for the very first time. Pushing up the throttles of his two Pratt & Whitney twin Wasp supercharged radials, Lieutenant Hatton was one of the last to accelerate down the strip at Saluche Airfield, and leaving the lights behind him, they headed out over the Mediterranean Sea, slowly clambering up to their cruising altitude. Saluche had been an Italian Regia Aeronautica base, but had been taken over by the U.S. Army 9th Air Force during the Eastern Desert Campaign. It lay on the North African coast, near Benghazi in Libya. Lady Be Good was part of a 21-ship formation tasked with attacking Naples in Italy, over 700 miles northwest of them. The conditions weren't good, with poor visibility and the Sirocco wind that blows up from the Sahara, choking the atmosphere with red dust and covering everything with sand. Other aircraft turned back, their engines running rough as they sucked sand into the intakes, but Lieutenant Hatton, the pilot, carried on towards the target. Strong winds buffeted the Liberator, and they were forced to make numerous course changes to stay close to their track, and as they approached their target, the visibility was still too poor to find it. Downhearted, they jettisoned their bombs into the sea and turned back for Africa. Other liberators in the group had long since come and gone, so Lady Be Good was alone in the sky as they headed back across the Mediterranean. In the poor weather, the one piece of navigation equipment that they could use was their ADF, their automatic direction finder. It was a loop aerial that would accurately indicate the bearing of a radio beacon. With little else to go by, and in unexpectedly strong winds, the navigator was struggling to come up with accurate positions. We are unsure whether the ADF failed, or the navigator just wanted to confirm its readings, but the pilot called Saluche Airstrip, saying that they had a fault, and they asked for bearings to fly. It would be the last call to be heard from Lady Be Good. Some reports say that the airfield refused to answer, believing it to be a Nazi ruse, but a more likely account is found in the official report of Graves' registration, which states, "The aircraft flew on a 150-degree course towards Saluche Airfield. The craft radioed for a directional reading from the HFDF station at Benina, which was nearby, and received a reading of 330 degrees from Saluche. The actions of the pilot in flying 440 miles into the desert are indications that the navigator probably took a reciprocal reading off the back of the radio direction loop antenna from a position beyond and south of Saluche, but on course. The pilot flew into the desert thinking he was still over the Mediterranean and on the way home. Despite their colleagues at the airstrip hearing the aircraft overhead and firing flares into the sky to help them, the crew of the Liberator flew clean over their base and onwards over the brutally inhospitable terrain of the Sahara Desert. They were hopelessly lost and running out of fuel when the first engine failed. The crew decided to abandon their aircraft rather than risk a crash landing, and they parachuted out over what they believed to be the sea, only to discover that it was a sea of sand. Lady Be Good stubbornly carried on for a further 16 miles before it settled onto the desert and came to a grinding halt. Her fuselage was mainly intact, but it had broken aft of the wings and cockpit. With no fuel, there was no fire. Even the glass in the cockpit windows was unbroken. Still on board were food rations and water that the crew would soon be in desperate need of, and more importantly, a usable radio. But they had no idea where their liberator was. The following day, a search and rescue mission was launched from Selous Airfield in an attempt to find them, but they failed to see any trace of the aircraft or its crew. The disappearance of the Lady Be Good became a mystery, one of the many unexplained losses, and the Air Force moved on. There was a war to be fought. Out in the desert, the crew still believed that they must be close to the Mediterranean and had no idea that they were hundreds of miles south. So they decided to set off for the coast. What we know of their walk through the Sahara comes from the co-pilot's diary, Lieutenant Robert Toner, as he described their efforts with sober brevity.
Sunday, April 4th, 1943. Naples, things pretty well mixed up. Got lost returning, out of gas, jumped, landed in desert at 2 o'clock in morning. No one badly hurt. Can't find John. All others present. Monday 5th. Start walking northwest. Still no John. A few rations, half a canteen of water, 1 cap full per day. Sun fairly warm. Good breeze from northwest. Night very cold. No sleep. Rested and walked. Tuesday 6th. Rested at 11:30. Sun very warm. No breeze. Spent afternoon in hell. No planes, etc. Rested until 5. Walked and rested all night. 15 minutes on, 5 off. Wednesday, April 7th, 1943. Same routine. Everyone getting weak. Can't get very far. Prayers all the time. Again, afternoon very warm. Hell. Can't sleep. Everyone's sore from ground. Thursday 8th. Hit sand dunes. Very miserable. Good wind, but continuous blowing of sand. Everyone now very weak. Thought Sam and Moore were all done. Lamont's eyes are gone. Everyone else's eyes are bad. Still going northwest. Friday 9th. Shelley, Rip, and Moore separate and try to go for help. Rest of us all very weak. Eyes bad. Not any travel. All want to die. Still very little water. Nights are about 35. Good wind. No shelter. 1 parachute left.
It was on that Friday that the group split up. Some of the crew were close to death, and the majority were too exhausted and dehydrated to carry on. So Ripslinger, the engineer, Shelley and Moore, both gunners, agreed to try to reach help and then return. Survival experts estimate that without proper hydration, the men would probably manage a maximum of 30 miles. But when the group split up, They had already traveled 80, an unbelievable achievement. After the decision, Toner continued to make entries in his diary, a poignant record of his decline towards death. Dehydration is unpleasant in the extreme, and it's remarkable that some of this brave crew were still alive, let alone able to move on. Their bodies would be suffering from fevers, which would only add to the discomfort of the intense heat. Their ability to cool themselves by sweating would stop. Their mouths would dry up, as would their tear ducts. Standing would make them dizzy, and they would be suffering from low blood pressure, rapid heart rates and lethargy, confusion and seizures.
Saturday, April 10th, 1943. Still having prayer meetings for help. No sign of anything. A couple of birds. Good wind from north. Really weak now. Can't walk. Pains all over. Still all want to die. Nights very cold. No sleep. Sunday, 11. Still waiting for help. Still praying. Eyes bad. Lost all our weight. Aching all over. Could make it if we had water. Just enough left to put our tongues to. Have hope for help very soon. No rest. Still same place.
The final entry was made on Monday, April the 12th, written in thick pencil lines.
No help yet. Very cold night.
The fate of Lady Be Good's crew would remain a mystery for more than 15 years, until a British oil exploration team spotted the wreckage of the Liberator while conducting an aerial survey of the Sand Sea of Kalanskio. They marked the position. It was confirmed by geologists from British Petroleum, but it took a year before an expedition from the United States Air Force Base at Wheelus in Libya set out to find it. There on the side of the aircraft were the hand-painted words, faded in the fierce desert sun. Lady Be Good. The dryness of the desert had kept the lady in an amazing state of preservation. The coffee in a thermos bottle was still drinkable, and many of the aircraft's 50 caliber machine guns were still in working condition and actually fired by team members. The radio worked. Some food and supplies were intact, and the log of Navigator Lieutenant Hayes was found with his final entry posted over Naples. There were no signs, however, of the crew. Then they discovered several improvised arrow markers at varying distances to the northwest, one made of boots, others made from parachutes weighed down with rocks, but the markers stopped at the edge of the vast, shifting sea of sand of the Kalanskio. Over the next few years, further searches and accidental discoveries would slowly bring the story of Lady Be Good together, as the bodies of the crew were found. The personal diary, which revealed details of their desert trek and suffering, was discovered in the pocket of the co-pilot. They shared one canteen of water for 8 days, left behind clothing articles, Mae West life vests, footwear, parachute material, and other items to mark their path, and came to pause about 81 miles north of Lady Be Good. 5 remained, while 3 others continued north in search of help. Staff Sergeant Guy Shelley's remains were discovered 24 miles north of the recovered 5 bodies. Finally, the remarkable flight engineer Harold Ripslinger's remains were found 27 miles north of Shelley's body. Ripslinger had walked 200 miles from the crash site before the desert took his life. The one crew member not accounted for, that of Bombardier John Borevka, had died when his parachute failed to open after bailing out. Only one body was never found: the remains of Staff Sergeant Vernon Moore. Had the crew journeyed south to find the crash site, Lady Be Good would have been there for them with provisions, supplies, and a working radio to call for help. Had they had maps of North Africa and managed to locate their position still further, but within walking distance, there was a life-giving oasis waiting for them. My thanks this week to listener Joe from Buffalo for the idea for this tale, and for Greg Willits for his wonderful reading of Lieutenant Toner's diary.
Wow, that gives me goosebumps. Just listen. That's the third time that I've listened to the plain tale, and such a nice job, Nick. But so sad. And
it is. It's such a remarkable story of perseverance, strength, strength of will, strength of faith that they would be found. All sadly to nothing, but you have to admire them for the efforts they made.
So much irony in it. Their first mission.
Yeah.
And
yeah. A rookie navigator, well, a rookie crew, but a navigator who probably wasn't doing a brilliant job because he didn't have much experience. Misreading the ADF and then not realizing that they'd already gone over their base, plowing on for hundreds of miles into the desert. And then the decision to try and walk rather than stay with their crashed aircraft. Had they been able to find it, it wouldn't have been too hard, I wouldn't have thought. But
yeah,
some difficult decisions. In our hindsight, now we know the story. We want to shout at them, say, should have turned around and gone to that airplane. You might have still been alive now.
And the description in the diary was so amazing to me. The fact that people's eyes are going. You don't think about the sand, that blowing sand, and what kind of damage it's doing to your physical body.
Oh, absolutely. Not being able to produce tears anymore, your eyeballs drying out, your mouth drying out and cracking all that skin and, splitting, and not being able to kill yourself through sweating anymore. It must have been just awful. Yet Toner, who wrote that, kept it very matter of fact. He didn't try and, he wasn't self-pitying at all, was he? He just wrote the facts down, I guess in the hope that someone might find it, but he didn't resort to trying to cry out in the words he wrote. He just wrote down what was happening.
Not embellishing, just keeping it straight to the facts. And I was amazed at the, you said the survival expert saying, without hydration, making it, what did he say? 20 miles, 30 miles?
30 miles.
30, yeah.
And that one guy made it over 200.
Yeah, and the last sort of 40 or 50 miles he did without any water, because the water was, I think, I gather from trying to read that the water was left with the 5 and the other 3 tried to just struggle on without what little water there was, but I think they were generally out. But their endurance was amazing.
They must have thought that they were closer to something than they were to strike out like that. I guess they don't really have a whole lot of choice in the situation, but I would think that they would have had to have at least believed that there was something.
Well, I think
within striking distance.
Yeah, I think because they thought they were initially over the Mediterranean,
that
they thought, well, they can't have gone far inland.
Right.
We thought we're over the sea and we're over land, but we'll just walk towards the coast and we'll find someone.
Yeah. Hit the coast and then just travel along the coast, and eventually we'll find civilization.
Yeah, exactly right. Now there's a tragic story I know of an American crew who did a similar sort of thing in Australia on the north coast, and they hit the coast, but they turned the wrong way. And it was one of those things. What they should have done, and it's very easy to say, they should have walked slightly not directly towards where they wanted to go, but offered an angle so that when they hit the coast, they knew which way to turn. But when they hit the coast and they couldn't see the city of Darwin, they went, we better turn. Well, which way should we turn? And in fact, they argued about it, so they split up. And in fact, even the ones that walk in the right direction, very few survived. They were eventually found by some Aboriginals who saved them, but the other lot all died.
It's on cooling.
It says 80 degrees.
Sorry about that. Julie just walked up here.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
My AC is just not sufficient up here right now for some reason. Just came up and said, "You didn't turn the AC on?" Yeah, I have it set at like 74, and it's still 81 degrees up here, so it's pretty warm.
It's like the Sahara.
Yeah, no
Not
kidding.
quite.
I'm getting dehydrated. Speaking of, hold on, wait.
Oh, there you go. Rehydration.
Yeah, rehydration.
Way to go.
Sorry.
But anyway, again, my thanks to Greg. I think his telling or his reading of that diary just makes that story. Really good job. Thank you.
Not only that, but the way that you put the music together and how you made the music stop at the last entry of the diary. It's just like, oh, wow. Very powerful.
Well, very kind. Yeah.
You have a talent, sir.
Yeah, it's ever so kind of you.
Okay. Well,
we're giggling slightly, by the way.
Yeah.
Because you've frozen and your face is in
I think I need a picture of that, actually. It's a great.
Here, let me switch to.
Got it.
Great.
You
Glad
just
you're
unfroze. Well done.
Let me see if I can. I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi and just.
Oh no, you're good now. You're good. You're fine.
Well, I'm turning it off anyway, forcing it to use the hardwired. You still have me?
Yep. Still there.
Yep, you're there.
Oh, I get to see it, don't I?
I sent it. Yeah.
Why is it not showing up over here? There it is. Hang on. Come on. It's not that bad. Kind of looks like I'm sitting in the toilet trying to get something out.
Yeah. There was a lot of concentration.
Yes.
In your face there.
Not an appropriate expression after listening to that very tragic plane tale, that's for sure.
If I didn't say it, by the way, Nick, that was fantastic.
It's very kind. Thanks very much.
All right. Well, let's keep on moving here. Haven't been making a big dent in our feedback on this episode, but we're going to keep trudging along and at least knock out a few more. Item 4, JJ writes, he said, JJ Pittsburgh. I was on one of my rideshare driving road trips for the holiday weekend. Sometimes I take a little getaway and drive some rideshare in a different city for some new scenery. I usually meet up with friends, but no one was around this time. I was feeling lonely on this particular trip and needed to start catching up on APG episodes, so I had it on in the car while I was working. It cheered me up because I felt like the APG crew was tagging along as I picked up passengers on this particular trip in Cleveland. Since I've met most of you in person, I feel like part of the APG family. Just wanted to let you know. Let Yins know.
Yins, that's
that's a Pittsburgh.
Western Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Let all Yins know you're all appreciated. Thank you again, JJ. Pittsburgh. Oh, very nice.
Very nice.
JJ.
You're part of our family.
You are.
Absolutely.
I hope your passengers enjoyed the episodes as much as you did.
They're like, what's that crap on the radio? Turn it off.
Yeah. You're part of our family. Just don't expect to be in my will.
And JJ, the most important thing I hope you did was sing for your passengers, because I'll tell you what, you do know how to sing in that time. I will never forget when we were in Nashville. And in Nashville, he was on stage with a Nashville local act, and he was singing. It was absolutely it was just amazing to see him get up there and do that. They were doubting him. He got up there, and he brought down the entire room.
Yeah,
he
very
really
talented.
did. It was amazing.
I've not heard JJ sing, so
you should. You should. He is JJ. You are very, very good.
Excellent. Thanks, JJ. Item 5. George, this is George Nolly, isn't it? Yeah, it is. He was the host of a fantastic podcast in its own right, Ready for Takeoff podcast. He says 2 items. Your description of wind shear equipment was really excellent. You brought the episode up to well above the 50% level. Yay! That's what I'm shooting for. We don't need no stinking Miami Rick.
Oh, wow.
Well, I wouldn't say it was up to that level. But okay, thank you. I'll take the compliment. And number 2, Captain Nick's Plain Tales about John Boyd was really excellent. My friend and classmate, Ray Leopold, whom Nick mentioned, was a close friend, an acolyte of Boyd. Ray is famous in his own right as the inventor of Iridium satellite telephone systems. He also came very close to becoming the first pilot to fly a balloon across the Atlantic. Ross Perot was willing to bankroll the project, but another aviator beat Ray to the flight. And Ray was a guest on my podcast, and it's really a compelling episode. Yeah, great interviews that George has on his Ready for Takeoff podcast, and this one has a link to the gentleman he's speaking of, Ray Leopold, and we'll have that link in the show notes.
No, I'm going to be a bit controversial here.
Are you?
Does a person riding in a balloon actually deserve the title pilot? Because, like, aren't
You'll
you
have
really...
to bring it up with Grant McCurran.
Yeah, aren't you really a
FAA
passenger?
because they actually define the pilot as being a balloon pilot.
Grant, you're just a passenger. I mean, you can't. You can go up, or you can go down.
No, you have to have a pilot certificate to be able to fly.
Yeah,
a balloon.
I know technically, Dana. I'm talking about philosophically, because that's it. You can go up a bit or down a bit, and that's it. The rest of the flight, you're just a passenger.
So
no, you're not.
Because you're out there, please send
you're more a
feedback
passenger than a pilot. That's for sure.
You're using your aviation knowledge to understand how the wind patterns are and to be able to navigate that balloon.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah.
Send your feedback to Old Curmudgeon at Airline Pilot Guide.
A pilot certificate. You actually have to have a certificate from the FAA to operate a drone.
Grant, we're expecting some feedback from you, man.
Yeah,
I'm just going to message him directly so he can be sure to listen to this. Liz, send me the timestamp on this one.
Speaking of Grant, I'm going to skip over to item number 12. Hi there. How's it going post Oshkosh? Sorry for the lack of contact since then, but it's been pretty hectic back here with work and travel, plus a few beers, of course. It was great to catch up with all of you at Oshkosh and finally meet in person, except Captain Nick. I'm just going to add that in.
Who is now my ex-friend.
Yeah. Yes. As mentioned, Steve and I are back with a new podcast that that was the title of the email. Our new podcast is officially live.
Woo-hoo.
Steve and I are back with a new podcast that we're producing with our partners at Aviation Trader, and then it's aviationtrader.com.au. The new show is called Airwaves by Aviation Trader, and they've started releasing episodes. The show's webpage is located inside Aviation Trader's premium section, which is free to join and gives access to additional info supporting episodes and blog posts. The show is already out on Spotify and Pocket Casts and should be on iTunes soon enough. I did check, and I think it is on iTunes. But of course, you can subscribe to the RSS feed and then he gives us the RSS feed URL. Please feel free to share the news with those you might think be interested in listening. We don't have, I shouldn't have mentioned it on this show then. Huh. Okay. No, just everybody listening to this show would be very interested in this show as well. We don't have editorial control, so it's not entirely like Plane Crazy Down Under was, but we're going to have lots of interesting people on and are looking forward to seeing how it develops. Thanks again for the opportunity to catch up and hang out around all the running about the place we were all doing at various definitions of running. Yeah. Steph's definition of running is different from Nick and Dana and my definition of running.
Yeah, very much so.
It's all movement.
I'm running right now. Can't you tell?
I'm running in my head.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm thinking.
That's Grant McCarran, producer, Southern Skies Online Media, and also now host of the Airwaves podcast by Aviation Trader. And all that info will be in the show notes. Thanks, Grant.
Very cool.
And we do apologize for Nick's comments about balloon pilots.
It's true, though. All true.
I'm not going to say anything.
Moving on.
Andrew. Let's see. He says the Nautilus Niku expedition follow-up. Let me try it again. Niku Maroro. Roro.
Niku Maroro.
Yeah.
That's really not easy. It just doesn't roll off the tongue at all, does it?
It's not. Hey, Al, just a follow-up on the results of the Nautilus expedition searching for Earhart's Lockheed Electra. Sadly, as we expected, nothing found, save for a tiny piece of metal quoted from the attached MSN article. It talks about them finding a thin piece of metal, and it turned out it was a black fragment. It wasn't aluminum, so it couldn't have come from Earhart's Lockheed Electra 10E. The silver sheet was more promising, especially since it appeared to have rivet holes. It sure looked like aluminum underwater, said Megan Lubetkin, a member of the Nautilus's science crew. Ballard picked up the piece. It's not her plane. It bends too much.
Yeah, baked bean can. That's what it was.
How did that get there?
Oh, weird. All the way from Boston.
Yes.
All right.
Floated on the ocean tides.
And this was a link to the entire article. The expedition continues on to do various surveying and mapping around Howland Island and surrounding area, but clearly the hype and generation for public interest was centered around the possibility or the possible discovery of the downed aircraft. To conclude, if y'all are still planning a meetup live show in the South Pacific, I'll bring the drinks.
Woo!
Excellent.
Probably
I've
run.
never tried a South
Woman should be
Pacific
there.
IPA.
It's got to be good.
Sounds
Do you
delicious.
drink out of a coconut?
Yeah.
Maybe a little pineapple slice on the.
Yeah, there you go.
If you drink out of
umbrella.
coconut, does that mean you get good hydration?
Are we really just
Almost
talking about pina coladas? Either way, I'm in.
I like pina coladas.
I have a word for that, but I'm not going to say it on air.
All right.
Is that what IPA stands for? Indian Pina Colada Ale?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yes.
No.
Okay.
No.
Let's see. I'm going to skip 7. 8. Morgan. I just started listening to the podcast about a year ago, and this is my first time writing in. Well, what took you so long, Morgan?
Ooh.
Oh, I love this feedback, actually. Thank you, Morgan, for sending this.
Yeah. Now, a few weeks ago now, I was doing my 300 nautical mile cross country. Was that for your private certificate?
I think that's actually for commercial. Dana, help me out.
300 nautical miles? It seems like a long way.
It's a long way.
That
I
is
think that's
commercial. I think
commercial.
it's.
Yeah,
I
that's
actually
commercial.
think it's more than 250, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there's. It might even be instrument.
What
Anyway,
would you get lost and fly 50
not
miles
private
too
pilot.
far?
It's got to
It's
be
not private pilot, it's-
because it can't be a commercial because I got my commercial single engine and I didn't have to do a cross country.
You do have to do a cross country.
You do
for
have
commercial.
to. Absolutely, you have to.
Well, then how did
You-
I get my
I
commercial?
think
You
it
got
is.
alleviation for all their Air Force or your Air Force flying.
Yeah, you may have already done something that,
might be
that
the
counted.
military equivalency.
But anyway,
Yeah, you
we digress.
got around the world a few times already.
Yeah, true.
We digress.
So anyway, I'll start again. A few weeks ago now, I was doing my 300 nautical mile cross country and was on my final leg home, having just been told to switch to en route after leaving Vancouver terminal. It was quiet, not a soul flying in the area. For a good reason, there was a nice big storm. Oh, for a good reason. There was a nice big storm moving in, and we were debating switching to an alternate airport to spend the night. All of a sudden, we heard the radio key on and checked to see if we were transmitting and realized we weren't. And our G430, our active comm, wasn't showing any sign that someone was on the en route freak. And that's when we heard it, quote, F you, Delta. And then another, hey now, guys, be nice. It went quiet for a few seconds, then followed by around 3 minutes of pilots making cat noises. We were monitoring 121.5. So our best guess is it was some bored airline pilots. So to sum it up, is that a normal thing? Have you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah.
Cat noises anyway.
Chewbacca.
Have you ever done anything like that? No. Thanks for all the amazing shows, Morgan. You know, most of it, especially those of us here on the what's gone on with my background. I guess it finally decided to give up.
There you go. Well, while you're fixing that, I looked it up. 61.129 aeronautical experience commercial engine for commercial pilot. Subsection 4I, one cross-country flight of not less than 300 nautical miles total distance.
Yep.
With landings at a minimum of 3 points, which are one in straight line distance of at least 250 nautical miles from the original departure point. However, if this requirement is being met in Hawaii, the longest segment only need to be straight line distance 150 nautical miles. So, anyways, we have to be above 50%. So we are now above 50%.
Well, thank God for that.
Well, to sum up, is that a normal thing? It's well known that unfortunately, GARD 121.5 GARD is somewhat abused by people who are bored or I don't know why.
Have very low mental
Capacity.
They're
yeah.
juveniles. They are.
I'm not sure why cat noises and Chewbacca sounds are so. Are the chosen noises to make? Lots of meowing and
A lot of meowing going on, and these guys and possibly gals. It sounds mostly like guys to me, but who I can't tell the difference when they're doing meowing sounds. Are there to annoy people who get easily annoyed when somebody is abusing the frequency. And what I want to say to those who just like immediately jump on and start yelling at these people is just do it. Just wow, what are you saying there?
Oh, it's just doing a guard noise. I mean, that's all.
Okay.
So when you hear that, you'll know exactly who transmitted it.
I actually never do any of those.
I hope not.
It annoys the hell out of me, to be honest with you. I am just mimicking guard noises.
Okay. And so the ones that are doing that know that there are a certain subset of people that are on the frequency that will get so upset by it. Thank you. That they'll start yelling at these people, but what they don't realize, it's just the same thing. Like right now, we have this live chat room. Fortunately, we don't have any trolls in the chat room because we do this unlisted. After we've done the recording, then I release it as a public video. But if you do it as a public live, and we've experienced this, it's been a while now since we've experienced this, but people come on and they go, oh, what's this? And then they just start making all kinds of rude comments and everything else. And they are doing it to get the reaction from the people that are not tolerant of it. Yeah. And so the best advice for me is that if you're out there and you're one of those people that are spring loaded to get on guard and go, let's be professional, get off the guard. You're on guard. They know they're on guard and they are doing it to upset you. So don't say anything.
And also if someone has given their, like passenger briefing or keyed up the mic to read back instructions and they're on guard by accident, you don't have to shout out, you're on guard. Like it's just not necessary.
They'll figure it out. Same thing with the guys that are calling ops. Dana and I hear this a while. You probably do hear it too if you're listening to guard stuff. Mm-hmm. They'll say, Charlotte ops, this is whatever flight, and then somebody will come, okay, go ahead. And I've even heard cases in Atlanta. Somebody's on guard, and it's not uncommon to hear somebody, they just forget to flip the switch, and they think they're on the ramp frequency, and they'll say, we're on the south side for gate B14. And some idiot will come on and go, okay, take the right side into the gate. And I'm thinking, that is more than just stupid.
You were reading my mind because that's exactly what I was thinking. That's like my number one pet peeve. You're actually giving an official clearance when you're really not representing the actual frequency, and the person on the other side that transmitted doesn't really realize that.
Right.
So now you're really hosing that person over. That's just not good.
Yeah.
I would venture to say that's highly illegal.
I would say so too.
Absolutely. Yeah. You could probably go to jail for that.
Yeah. I really think it's
what's that?
I'm just curious to know why Dana has all these sound effects on his phone.
Well, you just okay. So this is going to be a lot of editing. So let's stop now.
I will. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You get on this thing, and we've actually talked about it with AG and RH, and it is annoying. It's very, and that's kind of my point that I'm doing. That I'm trying to get across right now is that it can be very distracting, very annoying, and people that are doing this are truly idiots that do this, because not only is it affecting us in the cockpit, it's affecting air traffic control and what they're trying to do professionally. And then we just mentioned it, and that is the the false clearances. So there's a lot of dynamics here with that 121.5, that the lack of maturity and people that do this on a regular basis, really, it's one of those pet peeves that I have, that people should not be executing on, that should not be doing these types of things on guard. It's there for a reason, and that's for those people that really need it, and when they need it at that time.
I was one of the latest things I heard was so pleased to hear. Somebody was fooling around on guard, and then this voice gets on there and says, "Hey guys, listen up. I'm an air traffic controller. We have guard by regulation on an overhead speaker in every single approach facility and center facility, and you are making it dangerous for us because all we hear is your crap. So cut it out." And then for the first time in my life, I was amazed that nobody said a thing. It was completely silent. I'm thinking, thank goodness.
Good job.
Perfect.
Yeah, because people aren't thinking about the fact that, as you said, they have these speakers that are set to monitor guard frequency, because if somebody's declaring an emergency, they need to know that. And it's just it's hard to do your job correctly and professionally when you're listening to idiots making cat sounds and other sounds like Dana just.
Yep.
And truly, that was my. I'm not intending to interrupt the podcast in any way, other than the fact that it became annoying. Jeff got frustrated with it, and I don't blame you, because that's what we deal with on a daily basis. So I was really trying just to make a point. It's just very annoying, and unfortunately, a lot of us professional airline guys and girls, pardon my French there, they're both guys and girls. Anyways, we would tend to turn down the guard frequency when that stuff comes on, and then lo and behold, you forget to turn it back up when the stuff is gone. And if air traffic control is trying to get you, or somebody's trying to monitor, a lot of times air traffic control can't hear everything on 121.5, because maybe the person's on the edge of the space that they can actually transmit and be heard, but one of us up at altitude can hear them a lot better than the ground folks can, right? So it's really a travesty that people do this. And I don't have a whole lot of pet peeves in life, but this is one of them that I absolutely hate. Sorry, I'm going to get off my pedestal. Thank you.
You know who else hates that kind of thing? The old pilot. He sent us in some feedback back in 2015 regarding, I think he was calling himself the old curmudgeon at that time, about people on the en route frequencies. Actually, in that case, it wasn't 121.5, it was 123.45. Anyway.
Yeah, I did, but I think we've said enough now.
I agree. Now, let's move on. What do we want to do? We only have a few minutes left.
Let's sing a song.
Kumbaya.
I need to bring my blood pressure down. Sorry.
Really mean that. Do we have
Mad Dog? Do we do 7?
Nick,
Mad Dog?
Nick Camacho's fit? No, I'm not.
What about 7, Larry? Mad
No,
Dog?
I mean we've already talked about that whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh
yes, we did. Sorry. Now I looked at it.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Let's go ahead and play this audio feedback from Nick Camacho. Probably go over the 3-hour point, but anyway.
That's okay.
He sent in a couple of pieces of feedback. We're going to save the second couple of audio feedbacks, and we're going to save the second one for another show. But here we go. This is, you'll remember that Nick was, well, here, let me read what he said. I've attached 2 pieces of audio feedback. One is a brief recap of our trip over to Europe in the C-47, Betsy's Biscuit Bomber. And the other is my recollection of a cool flying experience with my dad and brother in Europe. So let's play the first one, the D-Day recap.
Hey, Captain Jeff and the rest of the APG crew. This is Nick from the Air Capital. Now that I've had a couple of months to recover and reflect on our trip over to Europe in the C-47, I thought I'd give you a brief summary of what we were able to accomplish. As many of you know, I was fortunate enough to be a part of the crew of Betsy's Biscuit Bomber, a C-47 based in Paso Robles, California, that flew over to Europe this summer to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasions, as well as the 70th anniversary of the Berlin airlift. Our airplane traveled across the country in early May, from Paso Robles to the East Coast. While we were on the East Coast, we were able to take part in some pretty cool functions before we even left the country. We were involved in a 5-ship flyover of the Pentagon and the Arlington National Cemetery, flying down the Potomac. We were also able to be a part of a 9-ship C-47 flyover of the Hudson River and the Statue of Liberty. That was a pretty cool experience as well. We did a lot of formation training and we did survival training in Connecticut before the big fleet departed. And then towards the end of May, the D-Day Squadron, the group that we were a part of, crossed the Atlantic Ocean. It was a total of 15 U.S.-based C-47s and DC-3s that flew from Oxford, Connecticut, through Canada, Greenland, Iceland, and Scotland before arriving in Duxford. We were based in Duxford for, all told, about a little over a week. We did some maintenance in Duxford. We did some flying in Duxford, as was so wonderfully chronicled by Captain Nick. We appreciate him taking some time to come out and chat with us and see us. And then we moved on to France, where we did a number of reenactor paratrooper drops. Our airplane was part of the 14 airplane formation flight over the cemetery in Presidents Trump and Macron. All told, I think we dropped over 100 reenactor paratroopers over France, over the historical drop zones of D-Day. And these were guys that were dressed up in period-specific uniforms, jumping static line rigs, so they're jumping off the anchor line of the airplane, and then using round canopy parachutes. They say that they're slightly more steerable than what they were actually using in World War II. So they couldn't steer to their landing zone, but they could at least orient themselves the direction that they wanted to land. After that, we went to Germany. We had an air show at the Wiesbaden Army Air Base in Germany. And this air show was solely our group of DC-3s and C-47s. At the apex of our group size in Duxford in Caen, France, it was 25 airplanes, the 15 U.S. airplanes, plus 10 European-based airplanes. In Germany, we were probably down to about 20 airplanes, but still, they put on a little open house with just our DC-3s and C-47s, and we were able to entertain over 40,000 U.S. servicemen, women, their families, and the local community that supports them in the airbase. So that was a pretty cool experience. We also went to Fossberg and then flew around Berlin. I'm sorry, and we were fortunate enough to be able to transport Colonel Gail Halverson, who was the original Candy Bomber, from Fossberg to Berlin. So we were able to do a lot of really cool stuff. The trip from Wheels Up to Wheels Down in Paso Robles was 2 months and 4 days. We flew the airplane for 150 hours. During that time, we burned over 12,000 gallons of 100 low lead avgas. Between oil changes and flight consumption, we also used over 200 gallons of 120 weight aircraft engine oil. We performed flight operations in 7 countries, as I mentioned earlier: the United States, Canada, Greenland, Iceland, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. And the best part of the trip is that all 15 of our airplanes made it over. We're able to perform in front of the European fans who were incredibly excited to see them. And all 15 airplanes made it back successfully. So I would not say it went off without a hitch. There are a few minor issues. We had a few small maintenance issues on our airplane, very small, considering everything that we accomplished. There were a couple of logistical and organizational issues we had to work through, but overall, we were able to accomplish everything we set out to do. Everybody had fun. Everyone was safe. And we got to show our airplane to a whole entire new continent of people who haven't had the opportunity to see it and may never again. So it was a great experience. Thanks for helping me share our story. Thanks for all the support. And like I mentioned before, also thanks to Captain Nick for including us in his plane tales that were so well done. That's all I got for now. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.
Thanks, Nick, for your audio feedback. And as I said, the second one will play on the next show. And wow, that was an amazingly successful trip. Lots of fuel burned, that's for sure.
Oh, it was. I mean, that's a pretty adventurous journey over there from the States up through Canada, Greenland, Iceland, North Scotland. So, you know, that's hats off to them all. And they're not just flying any other aircraft. They're flying a piece of history that is aged and needs to be treated with care. And wasn't ever going to be easy to fly. I mean, it's not it's oh, heaven's sakes, World War II era aircraft. It doesn't have anything like we're used to, guys. So that requires real piloting skills to do that. Well done, guys.
Yes, very much so. Well done. And thank you, Nick, for helping them chronicle it.
Oh, that was my pleasure. So anything I can do to help in the future, more than happy.
Those photos are wonderful. So I don't know if Jeff is going to put them in the show notes this time around, but if not, go back and watch the.
We've already done so.
Yeah, you've already done so, but they're here again in this video if you've not seen them before. So.
Yeah. There you go. And with that, I think it now is time for us to end this episode. And we're going to first point you over to the airlinepilotguy.com website. Arash Maheen is our, he manages that for us. And there's a lot of stuff there. You can see information about the crew and the community and the coffee fund and plane tales. What else? The APG library, our librarian Tiffany takes care of that. And we have merchandise, including coffee mugs, and so much more. So head over to airlinepilotguy.com where you can find out about that. And we do have apps. Apparently you can't get the Android version anymore, but we'll see what we can do about that. But there is still an iOS version if you have an iOS device. And just look on the Apple App Store for that. And we're also on the social medias.
You can head over to Twitter and using the handle @APG Crew, you can interact with us there. Find all of our individual Twitter information pinned to the top of that page. You can also head over to facebook.com/airlinepilotguy and interact with the community members there, all of us, and lots of good information being shared on both platforms. And if you really want to delve deep into the APG community, you can hear a little bit more about Slack now from Hillel.
Yeah, Hillel. Hillel, it's time.
Sorry, Jeff, I might have used all your skin lotion.
Dang it.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plane tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel. And a big shout out and thank you to our producer, Liz in Toronto. Liz Piper, thank you very much for.
Hey, thank you, Liz.
And thank you to all of you that show up on these live episodes, these live recordings every week.
You're welcome. Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to be
here. And thank you to my co-hosts that show up every week, most of the time.
It wouldn't be me.
Help me do this. And with that, I guess that's it. We'll see you next week. Wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, folks.
Sayonara, arigato.
What? Why are you laughing?
All I said earlier.
For somebody to say something.
Thank you and it's goodbye and thank
Goodbye and thank you.
That's
Oh
what-
no, I understood what you said.
Well, that's
I was just waiting for somebody to
Waiting for a smart aleck
Yeah.
comment.
You're waiting for meow.
if you want.
That would have been good.
I know I should have done that right at the very end. Meow.
Yeah, when I hear that on guard, I know exactly who it is.
Yeah,
Can't disguise that one.
because I can tell you what, I would be immediately recognized.
All right.
You tell I have a little issue with that.
Pardon?
Could you tell I have a little issue? I don't.
No, I couldn't tell.
don't have very many pet peeves, but that's one of them. Is like I just want to go jump through the radio and wring the guy's neck or the girl that's neck that's doing that. It just irritates the hell.
We kind of got that from your comments. But I wanted to say that you didn't need to play all those things to annoy us, because just being on the show with us annoys us.
See ya.
No, I'm just kidding.
Honey, time for dinner. She's sitting over here on the
Dude,
couch.
bam! Wait a minute, I got to get the rim shot. There we go.
Sitting over here on the couch.
You
Wow.
lost it, Nick.
She misses me. She's like, "Hi, honey."
So
Nick just lost our. Oh no, there it is. Go down. Go down. Nick lost our audio file from today. Sorry, trying to save the. Turn your recorder off and save the file.
Oh, yeah. I should
I'm not even gonna bother because I think it came through perfect. But I'm just gonna hold on to it just in case you need.
Yeah, just hold on to it. If I need it, I'll.
You let me know. I'll be home all week.
Okay.
Except for I'm not available Thursday.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that after we stop the broadcast.
Yeah, I know we will, but I'm just saying.
Okay. So thank you, everybody in the chat room, for joining us again today, hanging out with us.
Yeah.
What are you all doing over there?
Sorry.
We're playing our own audio back to ourselves by accident.
It's very disorienting. Like, all of a sudden, I'm hearing myself and Nick, like, from stuff we said hours ago.
All right, where's Justice? That's the question I have.
I don't know.
You don't know.
Over there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so tired of this crap.
Yeah, he did get a little abandoned tonight. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He
Poor
gets tired easy.
Being around stuff.
Notice
Yeah, it's tiring.
Tired easier later now because he's not flying the backside clock stuff. So I think he's starting to.
I'm getting into a routine where I like to be in bed by 10 o'clock.
Exactly.
Well,
that's what I'm starting to notice. That's I'm picking up on it.
Yeah.
So it's an hour past your bedtime, sir.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly right.
Okay. Well, we better stop the broadcast then, so you can get to bed.
Oh, that's all right. I don't mind.
All right. Well, anything you want to say to the fine folks in the chat room before I?
Yeah, don't fly in any balloons, and if you do, don't call yourself a pilot.
Oh gosh.
Oh my
I'm
God.
regretting your decision to ask Nick if he had anything to say.
Nicholas Anderson.
I should have just turned the volume down. Oh,
Nicholas Anderson.
all right. Bye, everybody.
Hey,
have a good weekend.
Hey.
How big a percentage of our audience do you think are balloon pilots? I mean, there's got to be only
There's quite a few of them are full of hot air. Come on now.
That's true. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Love that.
Excellent.
Toodles.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Hot air
Meow.
pilots.
Meow.